From the John DeVita recording studio, located in an undisclosed and clandestine location on the great northwest side of our fair city of Chicago, we once again are pleased to be presenting yet another edition of our monthly roundtable panel discussion show, Meet the Chicago Historians.
John, tell the other.
You know, this is a waste. Now here's our panel moderator, Jack Red Ryan.
Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to our February show, a special show. It's a short month, but we got Washington, Lincoln, President's Day, Black History Month. We have Ash Wednesday, Groundhog Day. It's National Chocolate Month. What else do we have? Anybody?
Great Chicago event, the St. Valentine's Day.
What day did that happen?
Punchki Day.
That's
And
right.
do we have something else, John?
That's it.
Punchki Day.
Isn't there one more? Isn't there one more
There we
thing?
go off for
Payday.
Punchki tomorrow.
Payday.
Isn't there one more thing, John?
Yes, it is.
What is
We're
it?
Coming up to it.
Are we?
Oh, is there something else?
Yes.
We didn't
What
cover
could it
everything?
be?
Wonder what it might be.
Extra surprise for this broadcast.
Another important day.
The greatest day.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jeanette.
And Abraham Lincoln.
Happy birthday to
The old boyfriend. Thank you. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yesterday was my wife's birthday.
Thank you.
Well, it's
Your
really-
birthday is a gift.
And it's Wednesday, right?
It is
At
Wednesday.
this time, yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
I can't come back Wednesday.
Oh, well, I'm going to get ashes that day, so
Last-
we'll think about that.
Last Friday was Kim Novak's birthday.
Was it?
Oh, local
Okay.
girl. Local girl. Yeah, she graduated from
My-
Steinmetz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has she turned 80 yet? About that?
Ronald
I
Reagan.
think
Sure.
so. I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Ronald Reagan was the 6th, I think.
February 6th, yeah.
Yeah, February 6th.
1911, I think.
Oh, I don't know. He didn't tell me, but I'll
You don't
Yeah, it was
remember?
1911 because he turned 70 in 81, yeah.
You don't remember?
no remember.
Oh,
I never
geez.
committed it to memory, so.
Ah.
Well, hello again, everybody, and thank you. Once again, happy birthday
Thank you.
to our esteemed Minister of Feminine Pulchritude.
Here, here.
And superintelligence, by the way, as Ken Little would say.
Watch your phraseology.
Yes.
Where is it? Is it showing?
Can you say
Yeah, we-
pulchritude? No.
Say what?
I didn't know you could say pulchritude in the air.
Yeah, Pulchritude, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Anyway, gang, we'll start with our Musketeer roll call. I usually start at the left, but we'll go at the right for a change today. I'm usually very much to the right, but, almost to the right of John.
No one's to the right of
Yeah.
me.
Attila the Hun.
So, yeah.
Okay, first up,
Tom McKenna, retired Chicago Police, lifelong friend of our moderator, and one of the few people that actually admit to it.
You brag about that, Tom?
You brag?
yeah, we've done a lot of things together, ain't we?
That's from
Cub Scouts,
from
Boy
kinder-
Scouts, Culture
No, we
Boys.
start from kindergarten. We
Well, I
were in
didn't go to kindergarten.
But who got blamed for all
Well,
of those things?
who is
I think it was second grade.
Was it you? You weren't with me in kindergarten?
No.
Well, who was that chubby redhead I used to hang around
Some
with?
girl, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Didn't know much difference in those days anyway.
Grammar school, high school, small time in
Cross
college.
country.
Yeah.
The only thing I didn't do, you got music.
Yeah,
I
that's right.
didn't get no musical
Well,
stuff.
you were very good at playing the radio.
Oh yeah, we used to hang around that pretty
Or
much.
playing the
but,
horses, maybe?
Tom did so much. He was the best man. He even went with us on our honeymoon.
Oh, show you how.
And moving along,
Next day, Al Opitz.
Al Opitz, former president of Austin Urban Community Council, retired city worker, worked for the water department, was not a friend of Daley's.
Which one?
Either one of them.
Good morning. My name is Jeanette Frontier, originally with WJJG.
Here, here.
And thank you all for the great song, because that birthday is a gift, and that's the only gift I want. I also, I've been retired many years, but I now manage at a country club and find that exciting. And I hope we all have a great day today.
You're here.
Thank you.
Rich?
I'm your announcer, Rich Lang. I have a teaching background in history, and I've been a long-time member of our dear friend Ken Little's Chicago history class at Wright College.
And Ken is absent today. He's on assignment.
That's right.
He's on assignment.
That's what they say on all the big-time news programs.
He's covering the weather from inside, looking out. I think no, he won't. He'll be back.
And I'm
John.
John Escacholco. I'm a former member of the Cicero Town Board, former Illinois State Representative, and also an alumnus of WJJG Radio.
I'm Ray Johnson. I'm the newbie in the group. Thanks for welcoming me in. I'm a former DuPage County cop, and now kind of more of a local historian, author, and presenter. Started a nonprofit group called Friends of the White City last year. Do some educational programs for concerning the Columbian Exposition.
And I just saw you. Was it about a month ago now?
About a month ago.
Oh, almost
Close,
a month.
no, well,
3
2
weeks.
weeks. Yeah,
3 weeks
something like that.
ago at Clearing Library, and you did your talk about well, you didn't get into. I think everyone was expecting you to get more into what's his name?
H.H. Holmes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's kind of the thorn in the side of people that are
Yeah.
interested in the
More on
Columbian
the
Exposition.
side
What a, what a great.
It was, you know, I mean, I give it to Eric Larson. I thank him a lot for writing the book. It got people interested in the World's Fair who'd never even heard of it. But unfortunately, everyone thinks he had an office at the World's Fair and was really involved. And I found a couple links, but nothing really earth-shattering.
The missing link, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. He's a fascinating guy if you're a cop, though. I think they should use that guy as a case study. For guys going
For
through the
a-
academy.
And
a
I'm
police
sure
boss
he
or what?
scouted at the fair. Is
Oh yeah,
what
I
he
mean,
really
I mean,
did.
there's no proof he was ever actually there. The only
No.
thing that I even there was one comment made by his fourth wife, who said that he had brought her something from the World's Fair, and then there was also the fact that when he hawked a lot of stuff, once he knew they were onto him in Chicago, he had to get out pretty quick, and so he sold a bunch of stuff to get some money, and one of them was a souvenir scarf from the World's Fair. But it doesn't mean that he
Yeah.
actually... he never bought anything in his entire life, so he always just ripped people off. So I'm assuming he probably stole that scarf.
Well,
from
because
somebody,
he had
but
to lie about everything.
everything.
He probably
If his-
needed an
if his-
authentic.
If his lips were moving, he was lying, even if he didn't need to. Seriously. I mean, he was an amazing guy. I actually got a headache doing research into the guy trying to track.
He'd be in
What
politics
it was
today,
worth.
then, right?
He would. He would probably. Yeah, he would probably.
successful,
Be, yeah, he
It's a
would.
good thing he didn't
probably.
come around the museum because we got one of the best artifacts from that World's Fair.
No.
Identify yourself.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
Bill Kugelman, retired
You know who you
chief
are?
on the
Okay.
Chicago Fire Department and past president of the union and of the museum of the Chicago Fire Museum. And we at the museum have a statue of Christopher Columbus from the World's Fair.
Yep.
And every do I have to watch my language here? Every Italian organization in the country wants to get in there and put their hands on that, and we watch it very closely.
Yeah.
How did you come into possession of the museum, by the way?
He sailed with Columbus.
Yes. Yeah. My birthday was January 1st.
That reminds me. Who was it that
You
said?
know where we got it from? There were 7 firemen killed in the burning down of part of the World's Fair.
Really?
Afterwards, and the people that ran the fair then gave that statue to the city fire department.
Nice.
And we had that out in front of several firehouses on display. And then, with the intelligence that some of our people have, they were going to throw it out. It is made of zinc, real thin zinc.
Yeah,
And you could pick it up, as big as it is. You could pick it up by yourself. That's why there's a big weight in the bottom of it. But we then finally glommed onto it by, from certain people, politicians that said, hey, we got a museum now. So
You saved it.
we saved it.
Yeah. We're going to what, the junkyard or something?
And it was going to go be done away with somewhere. And we had it in the St. Columbus Day parade here a few years back, and it was the head of the parade.
How high is it, or how tall is he?
It's about 12 foot, 12, 13 feet,
Ouch.
and it really is,
Yeah.
a showpiece for us.
It's a fascinating statue. The guys at the Fire Museum helped me a lot because I did a story on the World's Fair fire
Yeah,
in my second book. So the guys at the museum were real helpful and provided.
we got a good
research.
bunch.
Oh, it's just a
right.
great
Yeah,
group.
we got a good
There
bunch.
were several fires there over the period of its life. It didn't last very because it was made
From the
very
World's
cheap.
Fair.
Yeah, it was made very
Yeah, it was
cheap.
all wood structures,
Yeah,
and
so they had several fires there.
yes, they did, and they lost. We lost 7 with the city, and I think there were 4 or 5 suburban guys lost at that fire
Right.
too.
While you're talking about artifacts, the city likes to throw out. Out in Geneva, they got the Viking ship that came in, and the head and tail of the Viking ship are stored over at the Museum of Science and Industry. And Ralph Rees built the what do you call it? The work on it to keep it standing up. So it, all the structural work to hold it together.
Well, the city just doesn't have anyone that has
Any brains?
a history. Well, not only that. No, we're talking
Now I
about
know
not
why you did
the.
that
Well, I didn't say
disclaimer
anything
at
about
the
the
beginning of the
Irish. I didn't say anything about the Irish.
In respect to the book of White City, I'm kind of segueing, but it's the same idea.
Sure.
What I learned is how we've forgotten when we see a project like the exposition and so on. And the book naturally is interpreting Holmes' adventure through his story, but how many of our architectures of great name and value came out of that, and landscapers, and of course Mr. Ferris building the Ferris wheel,
Right.
which was enormous. You really have to see that however it got written, that they were all given their praise, and
Oh, absolutely.
You
I think it brought a lot of people in. And
Right.
The world, people have no clue how
No clue.
huge it was.
Yeah.
How huge of a deal. And so when we're giving tours in Jackson Park, it's really funny because, I give walking tours every Saturday morning for free as part of the nonprofit every Saturday from May through October. And the biggest building there being the Manufacturer and Liberal Arts Building. You could take the Sears Tower, tip it on its side, and shove it inside that building.
Yeah, it was like
who would know that?
Yeah,
several
And-
football fields.
Yeah, 23 football fields. You could fit inside the Manufacturer and Liberal Arts Building.
Yeah, we talked about that in the last show. You know, that literally brought the world to Chicago
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
for the first time.
Well, the other thing was that on the reverse side of it, it showed people how you can live in a clean city. Because before that, generally most of the cities were downtrodden and garbage filled, and the streets were littered with all kinds of garbage. And somebody figured out, hey, you can clean this place up. So it was a masterpiece in that respect.
And we also didn't have the construction pieces to work with
No.
like we do now.
No,
you
they
know,
had cranes. I'd seen
yeah,
photos of some cranes,
obviously.
but not the power equipment. That
Right,
we have now.
right,
And the
right.
fact, and I think an important thing, because I always think about the kids. And I think when I'm doing something like that to get them interested in history, because I feel like I was cheated in school because
history was not
terrible.
taught well. No.
And the thing is just to show them that how much can be accomplished if people really put their minds to it, and you have a good group of people behind it. Because you're talking about, they found out they were getting the fair in 1890.
Yeah.
And by
They didn't have a lot of time.
No, they only had a couple years to get this thing off the ground.
They were late. It was
Still was
supposed to
a-
be.
they
It
were
was supposed to
late,
be
sure.
1892 for the
right.
anniversary.
Right,
Oh,
exactly.
okay.
So they were a little late, but you can't. I mean, you couldn't do that now.
Right, and then
In 2
and then
years.
the other side of it, like we have our penitentiaries and jails all filled with if they would use that knowledge out on the street, I mean, out in the world, not on the street, you had to say the man had maybe a sick but a very unique mind because he structured a building to involve what he interpreted as what he was going to do with all these women, which was a very
And it wasn't
sad.
only women. I mean, in the book, they kind of point to the fact that, and there's been a lot of, and I don't want to talk all about homes, and I know this is Valentine's Day and stuff, but it irks me when people call him America's first serial killer, because he wasn't a serial killer. He was an opportunistic sociopath. That's what he was. And
That's
if
what I
he could
said,
make
he had a
money,
sick mind,
he would make money. If he had to kill somebody in the process, not a big deal. But he wasn't driven to kill. So there's people saying there's hundreds of bodies underneath the post office at 63rd and Wallace, where the building used to stand. No, I mean there's maybe 6 to maybe upwards of 9 people that can really be traced to Holmes killing them. Other than that, it's just all conjecture. And he was too busy doing other things. I mean, it's just, but he was definitely an interesting character.
He was a little ahead of his time. No, we had Al Capone later on.
One of the serial killers, though, is right over here in buried right out here at in Dunning.
Johann?
Yeah, Johann. Johann Ho. He married what? They don't know how many women he married. It's about 40 or so.
It's upwards of 40.
Yeah, and he killed at least half of them.
And that was across the country. That wasn't just in Chicago.
He was another, another character. And
how about Gacy?
Well,
Sure.
Gacy was, another sociopath.
30-something.
Yeah, all boys.
More.
Yeah.
Didn't it seem like the newsboys love to say John Wayne Gacy all the time?
Yeah, well,
It just seemed
talking
like-
heads.
emphasizing. Yeah.
Don't forget Bill Herons.
Oh, God,
Oh, yeah.
No.
Herons was what year was that? Anyone?
46, I
46,
46, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
his
he only lived a couple blocks from
her dad was
from
a
me.
good friend of my father,
Oh,
so
yeah.
I know that
I
so well.
remember when John Wayne Gacy, when they
John Gacy.
all right, John Gacy. When he they tore his house apart. I didn't take the camera long. I should have, but I went past his house there. And the only thing there was like 4 pillars and a roof. Everything, the walls were all tore out and everything else. You look at it, and they had a hell of a time selling the building they put on it to replace it.
Oh, I'm sure.
You know, because all the
Stigma.
stigma, yeah.
Sure.
You know, one of the things that I always find interesting when they interview the neighbors of these, psychopaths.
Oh, he was
How
a nice
one
guy.
day.
Yeah,
Almost-
I used to talk to him when we went out to pick up the newspaper.
Exactly. Almost every single person says, "No, he seemed fine to me." He was not one person says, "Oh, that guy was
quiet person.
that guy was a wacko."
He might have
I'm
kept
not-
to
I'm not
himself,
surprised.
but
Yeah.
he was a nice guy.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Every time they get one of these tower snipers or something, he was quiet at home.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
You
yeah.
got the ones you gotta watch. But no, everyone even loved Holmes. I mean, the ladies loved him. The deputy that used to serve him with all of his court, because he had been sued so many times, the deputy was quoted in court saying, "I like the guy." You know, I mean, even the cops like the guy. I mean, but those type of people are very charismatic. They're very.
They have to be.
They just draw people toward them.
Well,
and they
the other guy
can
that
do it,
the
believe.
neighbors liked was Dillinger. He lived there. They said it was just like a businessman. He'd go out in the morning, do his, his
Get rid
job,
of
you want to call it
everybody.
that, and come back at home. And,
That's like the similar comment when people talk about con men.
yeah.
And they say he just didn't seem like a con man.
It would be a very
What
good
is-
comment.
If he seemed like a con
I'd have
man,
known.
He wouldn't be a successful
he
con
wouldn't
man.
he wouldn't make any money. So.
And those were the people that were conned by that con.
Right,
They
exactly.
didn't want to admit it.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, that Bernie Madoff, that was one of his things, how he used to recruit. He'd say, look, he said, I'm not accepting anybody else, I mean, John Ryan's a friend of mine, but I just can't. Oh, please. All right, look, I'll take your money,
One
but
more.
don't tell anybody. Thank you, Mr. Madoff.
Sam
favor,
Goldwyn,
yeah,
the
right.
great Hollywood producer, once said that in Hollywood, sincerity is the most important thing. Once you learn to fake that, you've got it made.
Right.
sounds
Well,
nice.
the other thing Madoff
How
did,
good.
he was sort of religious oriented, so I used to mostly get the Jewish people involved with it, and that was one of the things that they claim you got to watch out for is these people that come out with their narrow path, to certain groups of people, mostly religious type of things, and they work on that, and they take them down the tubes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, get right. Gain their trust and then screw them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was it Yellow Kid Weil? He conned someone into thinking they were buying, was it Western Union or something? And he meets them and he walks through some open area where there's a lot of operators or whatever, and there's a whole bunch. He just waved, and he knew at a certain number would wave back. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Interesting.
There's always friendly people there. Yeah.
Okay. Get back to February now. Let's see. What do we have, Lau? We have.
Well, you can always go imitate old George Carlin in his ippy-dippy weather. He said, it's cold today, it's going to be cold tonight, it's going to be cold tomorrow, and maybe 6 months it might change.
So much for global warming. Okay, in our section we always spend a lot of time on called recent history or current events. We have, what do we have now? We have a lovely images from some
Some place
mass
called Yemen.
killing in Libya of
Oh, yeah.
some Coptic Christians.
Coptic Christians.
About 21 beheadings there of our this minor league team
But
called ISIS.
John, you just skimmed over what our president says is much more important than that.
What's that?
Global warming.
Is it?
Much
Yeah.
bigger threat.
Yeah,
And-
global warming is a much bigger
Much bigger
threat.
threat.
And getting there on tea time.
Yeah, right.
Anyway,
Yeah.
If they were yeah.
I'm sure as those people were getting their heads sawed off, they probably said to themselves, "Well, at least it isn't
I
global.
don't have to worry about global
At
warming.
least global warming won't affect me any."
not only do these
God
say-
help us.
I have yet to fully understand what their aim in life is besides killing people.
Well, they beside from the fact they're beheading, they use like dull blades and. Serious? No, I'm saying it's I mean, this begs the question: where or what is the United Nations? And what are they? When they
Well,
were
isn't
founded,
it
for one
right?
thing.
The what?
Yeah, exactly. If I had anything to say, I might say pack everything, get out of here. But before you go, pay New York City all the unpaid parking tickets you owe them. We probably take them out of debt, with that.
Well,
But-
here in
for what they're
Chicago
worth.
last year, we were the host to NATO, and we heard all of these stories about how great NATO was and how we helped them and how we were into it and all that. Where are they now? Where are the NATO people?
NATO
You know,
will
they're
only be as good as
out
Uncle
hiding.
Sam was, I believe. And
Well, none of these are as good as Uncle Sam.
I
is.
mean, whatever Uncle Sam leads a little, maybe then we can.
That's right. We have to lead, and that's where we don't have any leaders.
Yeah, no.
We,
Thank you, Bill.
we take all of these generals and admirals and put them through war school and command school, and you don't hear a thing about them.
You know,
That's
Well,
it.
yeah,
That's
you
it.
guys-
Because the politicians just
When
stymie
you-
it.
They're
When you have-
subordinate to the people making the policy in the White House.
Yes.
When you have someone in the White House that has a problem with calling Islamic terrorists terrorism what it is, or mentioning Muslims, but has no qualms whatsoever about bad-mouthing white racist police officers
Yeah.
throughout the United
Yeah.
States, then something is really
Oh, sure.
drastically wrong.
Absolutely,
There's two
Tom.
things that struck me about ISIS. One is the fact that they're so radical that I don't see them being around much longer because as far as I'm concerned, they don't have any friends in the Muslim community because you've got Muslims complaining, at least according to the national news,
Yeah.
Muslims complaining that we're not doing enough.
yeah.
So when you start to have Muslims complaining that the U.S. isn't doing enough against a Muslim terrorist group,
Yeah.
that should raise some bells.
You got some,
They still appeal.
Jordan did it right. They go in there with their planes and they should kill 10,000.
The Egyptians hit back today. The Egyptian Air Force
they
went in.
are.
Yeah, the
They do
Egyptian
that
Air
too.
Force.
You know
Before
what?
we-
I want them to get in there, and I want them to do something to the Jews, and let the Jewish army and Air Force and that, and
Israeli.
touch them.
Yeah.
Israelis,
Yeah.
absolutely. They're not going to screw around with
Nope.
them.
Yeah,
and
right. They unleash that, and
They unleash hell.
yeah.
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 Israeli fighter pilots, the best in the world.
Yep.
Before we go
With
any further,
apologies to the United States, but they'll even admit it.
who mentioned
Israeli
Jordan here?
fighter pilot.
Everyone wants to know Jordan is a country, not just a basketball player or shoes. Now, okay, the country of Jordan. Okay?
Right.
I was going to say a lot of these fat ass sheiks around in Saudi Arabia, they were all of a sudden they understand that it could be their head next. That's starting to sink in. You're gonna, and Saudi Arabia was building some great wall or fence along one border right now, right?
You know, I don't know if I told or brought this up, but to try to get in the mind of what's occurring, I mean, how could you chop somebody's head off? I read the Quran. Not only did I read it, I read it 2 more times, and through research I found what is supposedly the best translation, because the Quran is only supposed to be read in Arabic. It's not supposed to be translated, but supposedly the best translation. And there are passages in there. It was funny because when I was rereading it, like for the 3rd time, I would just happen to read a passage, and it was right after they burned that pilot to death, and there is a line in there that says, "Non-believers will dwell in fire."
Yeah.
So my feeling is that they actually believe that what they're doing is for the good.
Oh, sure.
So
My
right.
recollection
I think
is
every-
when we studied Islam in school was that one of the 6 basic principles of the Islamic faith is the word jihad, holy war. Holy war is one of their fundamental principles of their faith.
Isn't it 7, John? 7 pillars of wisdom.
I remember 6. It could have been 7. I remember it as 6, but I remember
You were absent that one day.
The last one, as I recall, was jihad, holy war. So I mean, the number's not important. The point is that they teach as a fundamental principle that killing thy enemy is part of their faith. Yet they always condemn the Crusades. The Crusades, the idea of Christians waging war for their faith is supposedly an outrage, and yet it's part of their fundamental.
And that's exactly what our supposed president has brought up.
Oh yeah, he
too.
he made a point of bringing that up.
You know, these are thugs. That's exactly what they are. They're thugs. Hopefully, those people will see that, and
But it's a whole different philosophy. I remember when I worked public vehicle. I know you'll find this hard to believe, but there were a lot of Arab cab drivers in the city of Chicago. Shocking. And I asked one of them once. I said, "You're Muslim, correct?" "Yes." I said, "Is there anything in the Quran about lying? Because the truth isn't in you guys. I mean, I stop somebody, you're wearing a red shirt, and I say, 'Nice red shirt.' 'No, this shirt is not red. This is not red.' This is, they can't." So he said, and it's true, and I just read it somewhere. I thought I had it with me. There's a word for it in
BS?
Islam. No. It's bad to lie, but it's okay to lie to you.
To an
And
unbeliever.
Right, and they really believe that. I mean, that's in their faith, that it's perfectly okay to lie to you. I mean,
Well,
it's
not
a
knowing
whole-
a lot about anybody's reasoning about their religion, in World War II, from something I can remember, the Japanese, too, did their fighting with the fact that it was going to their gods or it was giving them honor, and they used to call it Harry-Carry.
Jack Brickhouse.
Okay, whatever. but the point is, there might be a foundation where that is told. I mean, I could tell you things that were told to me as I went to parochial school, and we would walk down the street. Something you should never admit, but maybe you were of a different religion or something, and my theory would almost be that you're lucky I'm talking to you because you're a sinner or you're this or that, and you can get indoctrinated. Sure.
Funny you should
kind of-
mention.
I remember years ago when went to a store and store owner was Jewish and there was a Catholic woman in there. Oh, she says the only religion is the Catholic religion, and all this stuff. And I looked at her and I just walked away. Says I'm not Catholic, but I married one. I got
Got even.
You know, my
Well, I just remembered our president explained to us why there's the violence in the Middle East. It's because 1,000 years ago in the Crusades, the Christians were violent. I just forgot about that.
He
So
left.
it's all our fault.
He left out the part where the Crusaders were trying to take back territory that had been conquered by the Muslims.
Right.
It had been Christian to begin with and had been overrun by the Muslims. That got left out on the cutting room
Don't
floor.
confuse me with the facts.
On that happy note, Rich,
Now, let's take our first brief intermission. You're listening to Meet the Chicago Historians.
Now you're getting too loud there, fire.
Hey friends, do you need an awning over your front, side, or rear door? Or your windows? How about a canopy for your carport? Or a patio cover over your patio so you can enjoy being outside in case of rain in the warm weather? All you have to do is call Awnings and More, and Raphael Bogus will drive over, measure up whatever you need, and go from there. You can call Awnings and More at 773-710-8403 or 847-890-1447. So if you need an awning for your windows or doors, call Raphael Bogus at Awnings and More at 773-710-8403 or 847-890-1447. Raphael also installs hand railings for your front, side, or back steps. You must be safe when you go up and down the steps, especially in bad weather. So for awnings or handrails, call Raphael Bogus at 773-710-8403 or 847-890-1447. Call today for a free estimate.
Now, back to our show. Really big?
we are back. Hello.
Really?
Did that wake everybody up?
We just had an intermission, but it was only intermittently done.
We keep
So,
talking.
intermission. We're back. Hello. Tension. Por favor. Tension. Yeah, we were reminded that we should announce what our topic will be once we get past all of the
Topic? We got one?
topic. We have topic. It is Black History Month, and we were scheduled to have John Chikanda had lined up a lady. I can't give her name right now, but she is with a musical group, and she's very much an expert on a lot of that history, including the Underground Railroad, which of course was a system of stations and abolitionist people basically in the North, and there were black people too, who were helping slaves from slave states, both the Deep South and border states, escape to Canada. And that's what it comes down to, and we'll get to all that topic later, do the best we can.
That was during Vietnam, wasn't it?
No.
No, we had guys going to Canada, but
Yeah.
But the problem with
You
that
know
was...
what? I want to, as long as we're on the Black History, my granddaughter, who's 13, invited me to see a movie with her. And the movie was something new out. I had never heard of it, but it was called Black or White.
Oh, yeah,
And
that's
I kind of looked at it to see what it was, and talked to her mother, and I said, what's Grace want to take me there for? She says, well, ask her. And she says, well, it's because of some of the things you say Papa, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, all right, let's go. So we went to see it, and the main character is a guy who has a granddaughter who is half black, and his daughter, who has passed away, was tied up with a black guy, and the girl that plays the granddaughter is very, very, very good actress for a little kid, really, really good. And I thought, well, I'll sweep through this baby. Buy that $5 box of popcorn and sleep through this. But I wasn't. I was intrigued by it, and they used every cuss word that you could think of in that movie, and often. And
this is out now.
It's out now.
Yeah, it's just
And I don't know how long it will be out. There was probably 20 or 30 people in the AMC, and I'm trying to think of the guy that played the grandfather. Kevin Costner, and the father of this kid was trying to get a hold of the kid for his mother to have her adopt the kid, and yet Kevin Costner had been raising this kid, and he wanted her, and he was very set against his supposed son-in-law. And like I say, he I don't know if I can use all this language in that, but he called him time after time again. I mean, they used it in the movie, a street nigger, and the whole thing was to show the difference between black people who are just as nice as some white people or gray people or green people, and the lower people, the street niggers. And after the movie was over with, I asked Grace. I said, what'd you get out of this? And she says, well, what'd you get out of it, Papa? I said, well, I tell you what, kid, I worked in the ghetto and in the project, and she didn't know what I was talking about. And I says, I know the difference. Do you know the difference between a street nigger and a black person? And she said, well, I do now. I said, well, you learned that from this movie? I said, yeah. And I reminded her when my son, when I was lieutenant of Engine 26 at Grand and Walcott, that was all the projects and the ghetto. And, worked in Martin Luther King, the riots and all of that. And I would take my son to the firehouse with me. And it was the best thing that I could do, is to show him, because we lived in Rolling Meadows, lily white neighborhood, and I wanted to have him at least see what the other side looked like and worked with, and that helped him when he got to be a state trooper and growing up. And I wish that I would have taken my daughter with me, but of course, I got more brains than that. But it was a good movie.
Well, Tom McKenna and myself both started at the old 48th Street station, 4802 South Wabash. At the time, I mean, they used to say 240,000 people lived in the area. We think it was probably twice that.
Yeah.
What they said, and it was very high crime, and yet. We knew right away. Whenever we had anyone arrested, including after Martin Luther King got killed, it was always the troublemakers, not the your average people. People you never ever hear anything from except leave me alone. I want to leave. I want to improve my life. The people that wind up victims over. Go ahead.
Our president said that we should train white police officers to know the difference between. With all due respect, Mr. President, this is coming from someone that was there for many years. We do know the difference, and we learn it very rapidly.
Exactly.
So thank you for the heads up, but we handle that pretty well on our own.
Yeah.
The president, he is not out the ghetto.
Never had
his
anything to do
parents,
with the
his
No,
parents,
very far from it.
He grew up in Hawaii for the most part. He was raised by his grandparents,
Caucasians?
Yep.
Yes. Okay.
and consequently, he comes back, and all of a sudden, he's a born-again Christian, or use of the word,
A born again liar, I mean?
whatever.
Born again Muslim.
Yeah, but the fact is that he was not.
Well,
he
that's
did
one
not
of
come
the,
up through the.
that's one of the
ghettos.
reasons why he went to Jeremiah Wright's church to try attempt to get some street cred, because he had zero street cred when he was running. I mean, the first election he ran, he lost to Bobby Rush, and that for U.S. Rep.
Shows you something.
And one of the reasons why they didn't vote for him is because this guy, he's got nothing to do with
Now,
us.
one thing when you mentioned that when he was first running, I remember I never even knew his name. Someone said, "Oh, you hear
Yeah.
Obama's running for president." This was not too long after 9/11, and I said, "Yeah, I don't think that anyone named Obama, given the present situation, would ever get elected to be president. I mean, even if the guy's a nice guy, just by virtue of his name, of course that's wrong. But when when he was first running, he met the thing about Jeremiah Wright came out, and I kind of respected the fact that even though I didn't agree with Jeremiah Wright and the church and everything else, he stood by it initially. He said, but that's the church I went to, that's the guy who was running it, so I'm going to stick by him, until more and more came out, and then he just threw him under the bus.
I never,
Well,
he never heard any of those things
You
sitting
got-
there
you gotta
20 years or
remember,
whatever.
a lot of these preachers earn their way by blaming the white for all their problems.
Right, but I'm saying
Yeah.
he stood by and said, maybe I don't agree with everything he says.
Yeah.
But he's who's in my, and I said, well, at least he's taking a stance.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
the
he's not-
media
but then
really put it on
eventually-
his
eventually
middle
when
name.
more and more came out, he's like, you know what, I got to
Yeah.
kick this guy to the curb because, and then he did say, I really, and then he kind of backpedaled.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh no,
The thing
I
is-
would rather have seen him at least take a stand on something.
The
rather than
question
just going
is,
back and
but
forth.
the question was not what he said when it became a matter of public record. The question is, why did he remain in that church all
Right,
those years, listening to all
Right.
this venom that,
Right.
that Reverend Wright was saying about our country?
He
Right.
he talks.
and apparently never objected. There's no record of him ever objecting
talk-
to it or disagreeing
He
with
talks a great game. A man, Reverend, who supposedly was ordained when he was 5 years old, a Reverend
Uh-huh.
who led a march with hundreds of people chanting, "What do we want? Dead cops. When do we want them? Now," repeatedly, loudly. This man who led this march has been invited to the White House by our president
You're kidding.
86 times.
You're kidding.
Wow.
So he can talk whatever he wants to talk. His actions speak much louder.
He owes about $3 million in back taxes, too, or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
He is a great orator. I mean, there is such a thing
Oh, he's
as...
a talker.
Well, so
if
is
you
Hitler, though.
could, oh, there you are. I was just going to say that. I just
I mean,
was
that
going to
doesn't
say
count
that.
for much.
No, but
I'm
I'm
sorry.
just.
You mean you don't
and
seem like a
when
con
you-
man?
I'm sorry, but I don't agree. I don't. I hear this
Okay.
all. I hear this all the time.
He's a great reader.
I just finished watching again some of the Ken Burns series about the Roosevelts. FDR was a great orator. John Kennedy was a great orator. Ronald Reagan was a great orator. Barack Obama is nowhere near their league. I've never heard him give a speech that would be anywhere near what those men were capable of doing.
Well, the other guy was.
He can read a speech. Yeah, he
I'll
can read.
agree
He
this
can do a
way.
fairly good job of reading a speech
Right.
off of a
He-
teleprompter.
Well, okay.
The other one that
that's
was real
what-
good was Everett Dirksen.
Can you see him?
He used to really come out
Okay.
melodious.
Oh, melodious is the word with Dirk.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. I don't remember him that well, but I remember some, listening to a little bit of him, and he was quite good at speaking.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he was old-fashioned.
Yeah.
I remember one time we're told that, I remember our speech teacher, was Dr. O'Shea, remember it, Wilson? He said, there was some function, and Adlai Stevenson was the governor, and he was saying something, and Everett Dirksen was speaking, but Stevenson behind him was talking to someone, and he got wind of it, and he kind of walked over, and he made a point, and he says, "Isn't that right, Governor?" And he goes, "Oh, yeah."
Nice.
Of course, Stevenson was pretty good, too, with the words.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
but
Stevenson
he
was
just-
a good speaker.
He just couldn't. One of my favorite stories about him was there was at some function with when Stevenson was running for president and Truman was there, and they were up in a hotel room, and Stevenson said to Truman, "I can't understand why my message isn't getting through." And Truman was looking out the window, and he said, "You see that guy standing on Michigan Avenue waiting for the bus? If you want to be president, that's the guy you have to get to, and you're not getting to him." And that's, I always thought that was very...
Harry also was quoted as saying about Adlai Stevenson, he's not much different than a regular sissy.
Really?
There's some good Steven. He was giving a speech at Northwestern once, Stevenson, and he had a thick wad of papers, and a gust of wind came up and blew like half of them away. And he looks and he goes, "Well, that's a break for you."
Remember at the UN when Khrushchev was here and there was all this crisis going on, and I think maybe it was the Cuban Missile thing, and he said something to the Russian, the word, whatever was said to him, and he says, "Don't wait for the translation, answer now." And the guy kind of split up, knowing he already could speak English. So did Khrushchev, though, for that matter.
That's his, it's a funny thing. I mean, he's probably best remembered for that confrontation with the Russians. I mean, he was governor of Illinois. He was twice defeated candidate for president. But what he will be remembered for is that the few moments when he faced down the Russians during the Cuban Missile Crisis. And the irony is, Stevenson always had the reputation for being kind of weak on national defense.
Wasn't that time.
But I mean, here the thing that he's most remembered for is just standing there, nose to nose, and really putting them in their place.
I'll wait for your answer until hell freezes over.
And I'm prepared to show the evidence.
And his father was a vice presidential candidate, too. Did you know that?
I think he was vice president.
His grandfather was vice president.
He was?
Under Cleveland?
His grandfather was vice president,
his son
I
was
think,
Adlai
under
III.
Grover Cleveland.
Senator. And then the one his kid worked for Channel 5 News for a little bit. Remember that? No.
Adlai the Fourth.
Is it?
Adlai the Third was the one that was the senator.
Adlai III.
And Adlai the Fourth was on NBC News for a while.
Not anymore.
No, quite a few
gave it
years.
Very long.
But his grandfather was vice president under Grover Cleveland.
Oh, was he? Okay.
Yeah.
See?
Did he have the same hair part?
He may well have.
He had a beard or mustache.
I'd like to go back to a comment that Bill made, and it referring back to his granddaughter. Was it they wouldn't know the difference, of, and I caught that because there is truth to that. So many decades later, we are different people now, even possibly ourselves in looking at things, But now, if we have too many suburbanites here and not enough Chicagos here, here's what I've got to say about that.
Who said that?
My comment. The point I want to bring out is that once Bill said that, we happened to have a conversation just about a month ago with my kids and that, and I said to them, I now am a suburbanite. I said, you know what, kids? I said, I really am glad you were raised in Chicago. And they said, us, we are too, And I said, he says, I know exactly what you're going to say because I have a crew of grandchildren and they're all been raised in the suburbs, the lily white suburb. What I find is it is necessary to live around the different cultures, the different people, the diverse way of religion and ethnicity. That is part of your education. And what I do find is, I don't like to put this title, but the suburban peoples, the suburban children, are just living in a fantasy of what life should be, but is not, but don't know where the difference is. And I find that to be a very challenging thing now as they approach the adult world. They're just green. Their whole life is
I can see that in all of the kids' friends, and I can see it in them even now. When the kids are grown up, I mean, my kids in their 50s, and their kids are 50, and even them, they have no idea what it's like.
Not
in the
at
city.
all. Not at all.
Don't have a clue.
I don't care if it's the street, the number, the what things stand for? Futuristic thoughts?
I wanted when I was president of the union, I wanted extra points given to anybody that was coming on the job for being in the armed services, you know, like we used to. And that helped because I could tell, as a boss, I could tell right away who was in the service and who wasn't.
We had that. We had that in Cicero. That was part of the police and fire code. That you got I think 5 extra points on this point system.
Well, and John,
for,
that's
for
what
service
I
in the
wanted
military.
in there.
Sure.
So that these guys had some kind of discipline.
Sure.
Jeanette,
On time.
Jeanette,
the problem with this
Jeanette,
one-
what are you talking about? Street smarts? Is that what you call usually?
Both.
Yep.
You're darn right.
Yep.
You're darn right. That's a better education than sometimes that big
Necessary.
degree you're carrying.
Sure.
Right.
The problem came in
Common
with something like
sense.
that was after the Second World War, all the big companies were urged to hire veterans coming in. Sure. All right, now 20 years later, how come you got all white people on your staff and no minorities? Well, they filled up because of the fact is that all the veterans came in. All of a sudden, they make a turnaround, and you sit there. Now, what do I do? Because the fact that these guys, you can't fire them. You know, because they still got the seniority and everything else. So, you know, the hypocrisy of a lot of this stuff goes on with that, and you got to be real careful with that. You know, it's
When I was first
Why
testing,
why would that make any difference, Al? I mean,
it's just politics. That's all. It has nothing to do with anything.
But that's a long time ago too.
Right.
I realize
It's
that,
a long time ago.
but this was it happened though. It happened. You know, because they were
They earned
criticizing.
it. The people that were in there that got those promotions earned it then.
Yeah, they did. I'm
Yeah.
not arguing
Yeah.
that. I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying the politicians are complaining about it, not the people that
Chair
are.
recognizes
Well,
Mr. Johnson, our new
Oh,
member.
thank you. No,
you say something?
when we're talking about, you know, because you're getting into reverse discrimination and you're
Yeah.
getting into stuff like affirmative action, and which is a nice term for reverse discrimination, really. And I understand the effect of, okay, well, if a certain group of people were maligned, I mean, truly maligned, not just, you know, if you had someone that was saying, okay, this particular group of people, we're never going to give them a job regardless of how well they test or whatever. I'm not talking about a situation like that. But when I was, just to give you an example of the reverse side of it, is when I was testing for different departments, I tested for the state police. And it was a huge group of people testing at the same time. And I think it was over at Comiskey Park is where they held the main initial thing where you sign up, for the test. And basically, the trooper who was in charge of it just stood up and said, "If you are a white male, you are more than welcome to take the test. However, you will not be hired."
Yeah.
So it's up to
He was
you.
honest.
It's up to you whether or not you. And it wasn't like a big secret thing. I mean, he was just saying you will not be hired.
Yeah.
Unless you're a scuba diver or a helicopter pilot. He said that's it. So if you don't have those two skills, like I said, you're more than willing to take the test. We can't tell you not to take the test. But because of a lawsuit that was being filed against the state police at the time, we cannot hire any white males.
He didn't say it was because they believe in equality.
No. He just said we're being sued. And
There was
because
a-
we're being
Well,
sued.
Equal rights
that
for all.
happened a little bit too when the school system was integrated with the teachers. They didn't have any certified teachers, black teachers, or minority teachers, however you want to put it. So they got rid of the certification requirement,
Which requirement?
Certification.
Oh, okay.
There was
and the teachers came in, and the trouble was the students were smarter than the teachers were.
there
Street
was
smart.
there was a unit secretary, is a friend of mine. This is shortly after they started all the affirmative action hiring on the Chicago Police Department, and he kept a list of all of the affirmative action hirees to kind of just follow along. There was a arrest of, I believe it was 8 police officers in the 2nd District, that's the district now at 51st and Wentworth, all charged with taking drug money and releasing drug offenders for cash and what all 8 of those black police officers were affirmative action hirees. He sent that to every news media in the world that
They
he
would
could get
not touch
hand
that. They
on,
would
and
not
not
touch that.
one
Touch it.
single
They would do
person
it
would
with
touch
a
it.
10-foot pole.
Well, it's the same thing. If there is a crime against a black by a white, it's all over the news. If a black attacks a white, It's ignored.
Right. Well, that whole thing about hate crimes, and I don't know if you guys were still working when it became
Yeah.
when the term hate crime came out.
Yeah,
it actually
as
became-
opposed to love crime.
It actually
Yeah.
became a separate and a
Yeah.
more heinous charge.
There was a unit in the detective division that handled that.
Okay. See, I don't know. I thought that was a fairly recent thing about hate crimes, and the people. I mean, I have friends of all different religions and races and whatever, and the people I've talked to, the people that are considered minorities, and whether you want to say black or whatever is covered by the hate crime thing, take offense at that they're kind of like, okay, why? And of course, there's a difference between the two types of people. Is that you have the one person who is trying to better themselves and say, okay, why should I be considered a protected person? Like in the same category as like a handicapped person, a crime against a handicapped person, or a crime against the elderly. The penalties are more for crimes against those types of people. So why should I, I can protect myself, I can take care of myself. Why is it considered more of a crime to kill me if a white person kills me than any other person?
That
So,
makes
I mean,
sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Right.
But we don't have people that have
common sense doesn't.
now.
What Tom just said before about a certain hate crime unit, in addition to being the unit, they also, the original offenses were handled by homicide or violent crimes, whatever they were, and these guys too. So you had like an additional layer of unnecessary work being done, salaries being paid. But as you said, we got to, they think they have to do it.
What I thought was interesting, and again, it goes to just, of course you had the St. Louis thing which really bothered me. I refused to watch the news during that time because I was in a shooting. I killed someone on the job. So I'm watching this cop, who shot someone in the line of duty being raked over the coals, and people are rioting, and I couldn't stand all the experts they were bringing on to give their side of the story, and I had to turn it off.
Yeah.
But then there was the African American police officer who shot the World War II veteran or not shot, but shot him with a beanbag and whatever, and the guy eventually died. Now, I wasn't there, and I don't like to armchair quarterback when another cop does something, because a lot of things, what you see in the video isn't exactly how it happened, or you didn't get everything leading up to that point. But there wasn't a lot of protesting going on at that point.
Well, there was two different things that went. First of all, this guy that was shot was like 300 pounds.
Right.
If
That incident.
that's considered a lethal weapon, I don't know what is.
The beanbag incident is a classic example of a police officer being involved in an absolutely no-win situation.
Right.
Whatever he did there,
Whatever he
he
did,
would have been wrong.
he's
For
horrible.
example,
Right.
here's how old was the guy? 90 years old. He's got a
95
knife.
years old.
Okay, scenario number one: police officer responds. He doesn't do anything, doesn't take any action.
Right.
He gets stabbed
Right.
and dies. Stabbed by a 90-year-old and dies.
Right.
Look at this stupid cop.
Right.
He's got a gun
Right.
and he doesn't even use it. Gets stabbed by a
Right.
90-year-old.
Right.
What an idiot.
Absolutely.
Scenario number two, which is what exactly happened, he uses the beanbag, non-lethal, for
Right.
look at this shooting the poor 90-year-old.
Right.
It's an absolute
Right.
no-win situation.
Absolutely.
No matter what action he takes,
Yeah, he's
going to be
hosed.
wrong.
Well,
Yeah,
I
he's
think,
hosed.
though, if you look at, too, the 90-year-old refused medical treatment. They could have saved his life if he went and got medical treatment.
well, that's one of the reasons why the
Yeah.
police officer was acquitted.
Right. I mean, there's nothing. Yeah, you're right. And there's nothing.
But the
you could have
thing,
done.
just to make it fast before the break, the thing that disgusted me about Ferguson is this could have been our president's moment. I mean, this could have been
It could have
this
been.
could have been his Gettysburg Address.
Yep.
He could have gone to Ferguson
Yep.
and said, "I was elected. I'm half black, half white,"
Right.
but he did the direct opposite.
Opposite,
He went
right.
there and said, "I was a victim of discrimination."
Right.
Then his attorney general goes there and says,
Right.
"I was a victim of discrimination," which
Right.
supposedly was a big lie.
There's another video of what was his name on Ferguson killing the guy who was killed there. I can't think. Michael.
Well, they never referred to him by Michael Brown.
Michael
the
Brown.
gentle giant.
Wait a
Yeah,
minute now.
the-
The gentle giant.
The
He's
unarmed
robbing another
child,
guy.
The unarmed
Yeah.
child. Yeah. That's
Yeah, he's robbing an old man, a black man.
right.
If it's not him, it sure isn't Gary Coleman in the picture. I'm telling you,
And the end result is you know
punching
what?
and kicking.
The
and
police wouldn't have had to have a reason to be there if he didn't rob the
Rob the store.
7-Eleven. or
Right.
the stop and rob or whatever it was. But it's
The-
like
the
that's
new-
the end result.
The news
It's
media
like
should have
just-
been indicted for that.
Yeah, just
the original story they
Yeah.
told, it was nothing.
No.
They even had me. I'm thinking, wow. They
Yeah.
said this copper shot this guy in the back with his hands up. Oh wow,
Yeah.
man, he's in trouble.
Yeah, well,
It
that
wasn't
didn't-
even
that
close
didn't-
to the
that
truth.
didn't
Shot him with a bazooka,
Yeah,
too. I
yeah,
think.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We ready?
And yet,
Oh, sorry.
You are listening to Meet the Chicago Historians, and we thank you for it. We'll be right back.
Friends, are you looking for a place to have some printing done? Well, I have the right place for you to go, and that is the printing store in Oak Park, Illinois. Call or see Phil Berry at 621 Madison Street in Oak Park, Illinois, or call 708-383-3638. Phil will sit down with you and help you plan whatever you need printed. Now, his products are brochures, booklets, business cards, catalogs, envelopes, letterheads, flyers, invitations, newsletters, notepads, menus, mailers, manuals, labels, posters, postcards, price lists, NCR forms, sell sheets, table tents, pocket folders, and presentation forms. And his services include 1 to 4 color offset printing, digital copying, high-speed copying, graphic designs, typesetting, laminating, foil stamping, die cutting, and imprinting. And he also has a complete bindery service, which includes booklets, cutting, scoring, folding, numbering, padding, and drilling. So once again, for all your printing needs, see or call Phil Berry at the printing store at 621 Madison Street in Oak Park, Illinois, or call 708-383-3638. And once again, they are located at Madison Street and Clarence Avenue, just east of Oak Park Avenue. And it's at 621 Madison Street in Oak Park, or call 708-383-3638 and ask to speak to
Back to our discussion.
Jack? Welcome back, welcome back. We've gotten into a pretty, I think, a very good discussion here. It's something people don't want to talk about too much. Generally called race relations. When it comes down to, I personally feel very, very blessed to have the mother and father I had who didn't have a hateful bone in their body. I mean, my dad knew all the slang terms for ethnicity, but he didn't mean anything by it. And the only time he said the bad word, if he meant a stick-up man or a rapist or something like that, that was not a guy, with not a guy who's just struggling along, had whatever the job was, That was I can remember well. We moved into our house on Damon, Labor Day weekend, 1952, and the previous owners had a very they were alcoholics, and they had the kids taken away from them, and so the neighbors see myself. We had 5 of us. My brother Bob was like 3 months old. I wasn't yet 6. Hadn't even met this guy yet, Tom. And anyway, neighbors see all the cousins running around. They thought this was like, who is this? The old little lady who lives in the shoe. Everybody. Well, later on in the day, for some reason, someone had the house before. Had some kind of pipe business. They had all kinds of pipe fittings, cuts, different pieces, all kinds of lead pipe in the basement. What are we going to do with this? Along come 2 guys, we call them a rag man or junk man, 2 black guys. Hey, come here. We helped them load the thing, whatever. This was loaded down with it. It must have been a ton of stuff. "Oh, are these all your kids, Mr. Ryan?" He said, no. This one and this one and this one. So my dad's pouring them a beer. It was a warm day, Labor Day, and they were giving us dimes. So I know they did well on it, but it was like
It was different.
you can learn something from
Yeah.
just be decent. You don't have to, you don't have to bowl with somebody. But just be decent to the next person.
That's
My
what
dad was the same way.
that's what was so disgusting. While our president is calling every white police officer in the country racist, as he spoke, white police officers are out on the street in black neighborhoods doing a good job, interacting with the community, helping the community, and the president is bad-mouthing them. I mean, it's disgusting. It really is.
It's politics.
Yeah.
It's politics.
Another incident I can remember
In ignorance, huh, John?
when I first left the second district for the first time. I was a 3-time loser. I had to go back to all the time. But anyway, 1969, I went down to blow the whistle downtown, all that stuff. And I was at Clark and Adams, which is a construction corner where they built the Kluzinski building. They were doing all the infrastructure at the time. And I told the sergeant, they were having a different guy take it every day. I said, "I'll leave me here, what the heck, So anyway, I did meet my wife there, so he should have taken. Oh well, never mind. Anyway, so one day, a few times, man, he was elderly. Of course, when you're in your 20s, everybody looks old to you, but he was retired age or beyond, and black man. He was always well dressed. He was a messenger for Continental Bank, and he stopped by talking, and he said, "Yeah, I used to have a watchman service along 47th." I said, "Where?" He said, "Where it was." Along right there, and I said, "Oh, gee, I remember a guy named Covington probably took over from you." Yeah, did you? I said, "Yeah, I remember this guy. I met this Covington. They were licensed to carry firearms. They walk up and down, check the places. Well, he went in to check a place about 3 months after I got over there, and he got shot and killed. So, you want to buy me a cup of coffee? So we go over to the one place, and it was still early enough to sneak off the corner for a minute. The woman in there, like you order and you go sit down. She looks beyond him till. Wait a minute, his name was Halsey, like Admiral Halsey. I said, "Mr. Halsey's ahead of me." Here's the guy buying me a cup of coffee, and she treats him rudely for no reason.
To give you guys an idea what the second district that we talk about a lot, it was at 48th and Wabash. When you graduate from the academy, I think it's the day before graduation, you get your assignments, and they read them off. So McKenna, second district, Ron, whoever, two guys from our class were lucky enough to get to the second district. Well, things are bad when you take your break, 2 black guys come up to you and say, "Hey, McKenna, where'd they send you?" I said, "The second district." They said, "Oh, you screwed."
or who's whatever did you step up?
Right.
There's a lot of people don't know this, but there's a lake up this side of Lake Geneva, and the name of the lake is Ivanhoe, Lake Ivanhoe. And that Lake Ivanhoe was, came to existence because all of the maids and help of the aristocracy of Lake Geneva wanted some place for their help to go instead of going back into the ghetto at night. So they bought Lake Ivanhoe and let them move in there. And we had the fire department and my dad had good friends there, Tom Henderson and his wife Sweet Pea, and Sweet Pea was just a wonderful lady in that. And when I was a kid, my dad would take me in there, and we'd go up to visit my uncle at I forget what that lake was up there, Lake Zurich or whatever it was, and we'd stop over there. It was right near Brass Ball Corners, and go over there, and I'm just a kid. We go in there and we could hear the gospel singers going, and I had no idea what the inner city was like at that time, and later on, I'm assigned to the firehouse at 35th of Michigan, and I walk over to the corner and get the paper, and got to know the newspaper guy there. Real nice guy, black guy. And later on, I'm taking my kid up to Lake Ivanhoe to see Sweet Pea and see those people, and we go in there, and nobody was home, and I see the guy next door, and the guy looks over and he says, "Hey, oh, Captain." It was the newspaper guy. You would think, walking around there, that you were at up in the 2nd District, up in Englewood.
Yeah.
And everything was clean and neat, and no problems, no trouble. Still that way today. Still that way. And so, you don't have to have the problems that we do have. You don't have to have them.
I know one of the veteran older black guys we work with, and I'm sure Tom and I did, and was Roger Huff, and he always maintained that prior to the building of the public housing and the Great Society and whatever else you had, it was like another neighborhood. You wanted people to come. People would come, or tourists would come to see Regal Theater music, right?
Yeah.
You ever heard? Anybody heard of Regal Theater?
Yeah.
Club de Liza. Anybody heard of that one?
Club
Oh, yeah,
right.
47th Street.
No, that was South
And
State. But
60,
yeah,
there's-
we're right. 47th and South Park.
The Regal Theater is one of the institutions
Very
that Jeremiah Wright's daughter went to jail for embezzling funds to rehab it. Yeah, it's true.
Wow.
The
Was that
Brownsville.
copper?
Yeah.
What was her name?
Yeah, I'll think of it.
Yeah, her and her husband, West
No.
something. Yeah.
Oh, the Brownsville area was
Regina. She was a lieutenant on the Chicago Police Department.
Right,
And she
right.
became chief of police in Country Club Hills.
Yeah, yeah.
And her and
Oh,
Wright-
yeah, okay, now,
her
yeah.
and Wright's daughter and a couple other people got some federal funding, and that was part of the project to rehab the old
Well,
Regal
GD of the USA, right?
Theater.
Yeah, yeah,
GD of the USA.
yeah.
But as a kid, I can remember a line down the middle of Chicago, east and west, and we were North Siders, and you would say, "I'm going to the South Side," and a second later it was, "Be careful." Now,
Those Irishmen.
well, no, that's because
Canary
all of you lived that way and you knew it better. I had to learn
All those
that.
Sox fans.
So now
you gotta
later
watch them.
in my life, I ended up building a home on the southwest side. Okay, that had to be emphasized.
Southwest side.
Southwest. Yeah,
Southwest.
you are right, Chicago.
Garfield Ridge.
Anyway, right. And the point I'm bringing out about is that was only done through everybody saying, not the move. The way I was listening about Chicago was, it was almost a be careful, so you didn't go that way, right? Well, I found out it was the most gorgeous part of Chicago as far as I was concerned at the time. But so there was dialect that led you to not know why you thought like you thought.
But in all fairness, I think part of that is people automatically think that the neighborhood that they live in
Is
is the
the
good
best.
neighborhood.
That's
If
right.
you go anywhere else, be careful.
Right,
You're
but,
going
you
you're going
hear that
into
enough, and-
dangerous territory.
right,
And I think
uh-huh.
you would probably find that in any city, any town in the country.
Exactly.
People think that where they live is the nice
The
area,
best, yeah.
and watch out when you
This
leave.
never happens.
We
right.
never thought that of
Never.
our neighborhood.
No. But it just shows you how words and people and their upbringing and whatever
Yeah.
can get into your life if you don't expose yourself
Now the
to a
opposite.
difference.
Don't be Pollyanna going where everything's fine and well.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah,
Haley
that-
Mills,
No.
wasn't it?
Yeah, sure was.
Haley Mills.
I have
Let's
I
get
have a
together.
cousin. He's one of these ultra religious guys, and he's afraid to come in Chicago.
Oh, heavens!
whole
yes.
city.
He grew
Oh.
up in Chicago.
Was his
Anywhere.
name, is his name Rahm Emanuel?
Could be.
Well, he said he's very good.
Raised in where, Winnetka? Or?
Yeah, he was raised in suburbs.
Yeah, his
Yeah,
kid just
that's-
got
that's
his
a
cell
no.
phone
Born in
stolen.
Chicago.
Yeah,
That made
that's-
the,
yeah,
that made the news.
right.
Kids go to private school.
It's funny how they.
Chicago Lab.
The Chicago Fire Department and the Chicago Police Department are known all over the country as having bad racial setup. We are very anti-black and anti-minority and that. And this has been going on for years and years and years. And I remember, again, as a kid, my dad taking me to, he was a captain then, Grant Cheney. He was the first black chief on the Chicago Fire Department. And we'd go down. He lived in Lake Park or, I don't know, Lake Meadows, wherever it was down there. Mrs. Cheney made some of the greatest fried chicken that I could still taste it. But and they had a couple of kids, a couple of boys. In fact, when I went on the job, I went on the job with both of them. But anyway, I can remember as a kid just playing with something. They had a dog there or whatever, and I heard Grant and my dad talking about the fire department and about the integration, about the blacks coming on, and here's a black guy. He's a captain, and at that time, a captain, if you got a candidate, bingo, you didn't like him. If he didn't, didn't come up to the standards, bingo, you're off the job. And I can remember Grant saying to my dad, he says, Ollie, he says, that's why they want me in here. He says, because I'll get rid of all of those, he called them the South Side niggers. He says, we want the Chicago blacks. And he says, I get rid of them. And later on, when I got older than that, I found out, yeah, Grant was right. They'd send these guys to him and bingo, get out of here. Bingo, get out of here. And he'd keep the good guys.
Something
and his companies always were filled with good guys.
Well, the other thing was funny about it, I worked for the city of Chicago. We had a vendor. She was married to a white guy. She's black.
So's my wife.
She was great. We used to buy a lot of stuff from her. The city come out and says, don't buy any more from her. Because she was a good vendor.
She what?
She did her job, basically.
Okay.
And the city said, don't buy any more.
Now, what you said, you said a minute ago, I got to beg to differ with some of what you say the general opinion was. From my experience, and Tom went to the same place I did, the police department in 1967-68 was like ahead of the curve as far as working together in race relations. Some of the best, sharpest psychologists and street cops were over the black guys. Not all of them. There was some people you wouldn't want to work with again, but some of the best, and they never got any credit for it. They kept the things cool during a couple of riot periods, and they knew when to do what, and you learned a lot from them. Anyway, do you have something to say?
Eventually, I think we were going to get around to the Jackie Robinson team losing their.
You want to go to that right now?
Well, I just wanted one point because I think it's interesting, talking the calls of racism, some columnists, there's a female columnist in the Sun-Times, she can find the racist behind every tree.
Sure, absolutely.
There is but here's a new, I think this is a new precedent for race baiting and calling people racist.
Oh,
somebody brought
I
up.
thought you said we had a new president.
In the championship series, where the Jackie Robinson team beat the team from Las Vegas, as the Las Vegas team was coming up in the playoffs, one of the kids had a stuffed animal, and so a couple of the other kids also bought that same type of animal. It was a monkey, and they started calling it the rally monkey. So when they were behind in the towards the end innings, they'd bring out their rally monkeys. Yeah. Okay, now I just found out last week when they took the championship away from the Jackie Robinson team, I learned that it was a racist situation, that the reason that they lost, and because they pointed to the racism in the final championship series, that the other team had rally monkeys which were racist. So now I think it's really to a point in our history where now we have racist stuffed animals. We have racist stuffed animals. Can it get any further deep in nonsense?
Well, the other catch on that was the fact that both these idiots, Jesse and Mike, yelled racism, and the guy who reported wife is black.
Right. Exactly.
Well, it's
So
ridiculous.
these guys are
Yeah.
shoot from the hip racist.
No, I wrote an article about the Jackie Robinson because I write for Chicago Now, which is owned by the Tribune, and it bothered me because I didn't know any of the kids on the Jackie Robinson team, and I know when they won, I can only speak for myself. When they won, I didn't care necessarily that supposedly it was the first all-black team that had won. It didn't make any difference to me. I didn't really care. I just thought it was cool that a Chicago Little League team won, or at least was in the World Series. They didn't take the World Series, but at least the U.S. title. And I thought it was cool. They went to and I thought, no, these kids are really going to, remember this time for their life. They got to the White House. They had all this fanfare. And so I never thought, black, white, whatever. I just thought it was a great group of kids. But then all of a sudden, I heard rumors that there may have been some, and I kind of brushed them off, that there was some, who knows what it was. But eventually, it came out that whoever the managers of the team or the coaches, I'm not sure who exactly was responsible, but they had redrawn their map, which was, I guess that was the big thing, is that they were recruiting kids from other areas. And then when they were questioned about what areas their Little League area covered, they produced a bogus map. I guess they tried to redraw the actual districts earlier in the year, and they said, you can't do that because we already have a Little League team that covers that area. And they were told no, but then when it came down to it, they just drew up their own map and said, this is our map. And that's what they produced when they said, and eventually it came out. But I was like, it's kind of sad for the kids, and I don't know, I posted this thing, and of course you can imagine all the comments I was getting back and forth, because I basically said, the kids we're still proud of, they did a great job. Now, unfortunately, because of the corruption of the people that were in charge of everything, now this thing that they could remember for the rest of their lives, and may have changed their lives. I mean, they may have went on to go do great things. They may still do that, but there's always going to be this cloud now, and now so they're the victims, is what I said. Now I got people on both sides pulling the race card. I couldn't believe there was one woman, I think her last name was Green, that was in the paper saying, well, if it was a group of white kids, they would have never questioned this. And I'm like, really? I'm like, really? It has, really? No, a rule's a rule. Oh, well, they shouldn't have the title taken away. Well, what about all the other kids? Nothing against the kids. Again, I'm not downgrading the kids that actually played their hearts out to get to the point where they're at. But what about the kids that are part of the team that they didn't? I mean, what does it teach them if there isn't any consequences? And they're like, well, why don't we just cheat next time?
There was also a comment that apparently there was two other teams in the dim dark past that lost their championship because of.
That's because the race baiters originally said this is the first time in the history that they have ever taken a championship away. Well, no, it's not.
It sounds
twice.
Good.
Yeah,
it
right.
sounded good, didn't it?
Right. Don't confuse me with the truth.
Now, I don't want to even sound like a complainer, but they won, as you said, Ray. I was happy. Hey, great.
They won.
Whatever, but didn't it seem like a little bit of overkill about the celebrating to begin with now? You know what I'm saying? There are a lot of people, well-meaning whites, who have this guilt or something, and they really believe deep down that certain people, minorities, cannot achieve anything on their own, so they have to help them along. I mean, every no matter how many times on articles, a cover of Chicago Magazine, whatever, and what now? What next? Yeah, they did it. They did fine. If Clear Ridge softball or baseball had done it, yeah, great. We celebrated a little bit, and that was move on. And to turn out that once again a kids organization has been messed up by some silly. Less mature adults.
Right.
How many times have we seen it in our scout troops, or sports, whatever? A guy we used to coach against in football. How do you like that shift, Al? Remember, and that's another story. But anyway, they're bigger kids than the kids are, and they ruined it for them. And that's where it is. What are you going to do? Teach the kids? Yeah, you cheated. We know you cheated, but, well, that's right. It wasn't your fault. It wasn't fair.
But
it's a much bigger lesson
But the
this way.
thing is, with the race card, you can't have it both ways. You can't.
No.
You can't say we won on our own with nothing. No one had any help. But then when you lose, well, we lost because of racism.
Right.
Pick. One. You can have.
Okay.
You want racism?
Yeah.
Cling to racism.
Stop. Yeah.
But then when you win, don't say, well.
But the answer is the people who make those arguments want it both ways.
Right.
That's exactly their
That's
point.
right,
That
yeah.
heads I win, tails you lose. That's
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't the Nazis? Didn't they have no? What do you call it? Statement of like
the big lie. You mean?
No. What's the beginning? Like you have your manifesto, like what you believe in. These are what you build your. They had. Now they could pick
mean
and choose
Mein
what they
Kampf?
wanted.
Oh.
No. I mean, like this
Platform?
is what we believe in. Like
Oh.
the Reds at least have that. The Nazis didn't have anything, so we could pick and choose what we want to do and change it as we go. Not comparing the Little League to Nazism, please now. No cards and letters. Or phone calls.
Oh, you're already gonna get
a death
a
threat.
bunch of
Letters.
adults who never made it big themselves, and this was going to be their claim to fame.
There was something recently in the
That
news
trophy was their.
about a kids' basketball league where they posted signs in all of the arenas where they would play. It was like high school, or not even high school. It was like the basketball equivalent of Little League, whatever that is. And the first was, this is a kids' game. Number two was, your child is not playing in the NBA. It was all directed toward the parents to try to get them away from the idea that it's kill or be killed out there.
John, that was in all sports. All sports
John-
that the kids played in, to keep the parents
Yeah, the
quiet.
parents are the ones that-
Let them
You
get
ever
drunk
go to
over
a
it.
game?
John and I
The
both coached
parents
grammar
are
school.
Terrible.
outrageous.
John and I
Their
both
child is afraid to
coached
go
grammar
home.
school, and the only time you would see, we practice all week long with their kids. They'd never come out there in the snow, in the rain, whatever. They'd come out on Sunday when we played the game, and the ones that never were the ones that were screaming,
Oh,
yelling, complaining.
Yeah, every parent who has a son, daughter in sports, be it Little League or whatever, football leagues or basketball,
Their kid is a star.
they should
Yeah,
go.
that's
They should at
right.
least screen once. Fear Strikes Out, the Jimmy Pearsall story from 1957, I think it was, and it was it was a lot of Hollywood, but it was also based on his real story. It was father was living vicariously through his son, and he was drilling him. You've seen the movie, anyone?
No, I
You
don't
ever seen
recall.
it?
I
Anthony
recall
Perkins.
the subject, but I don't
Anthony
recall.
Perkins played Pearsall.
I saw
and,
the
Carl
sequel,
Walter
which was
his father.
Fear Bunts Foul with 2 strikes.
Was that? Anyway, I don't know. My hearing's going bad. But anyway, it just showed how and Pearsall said later it just drove him
Another
over
one
the
of
edge.
its-
There's a really
Bunting foul with
there's
2
a really
strikes.
There's no strike.
profound
Right.
scene.
Right, I
And have
heard
you
that.
seen it, Ray?
Mm-mm.
Well, damn it! You've seen it? Anybody seen that movie?
No.
Oh, what a
Years
straight-
ago.
I saw it at the Ogden Theater. The
I saw
Ogden.
Jimmy Pearsall throwing all the sand buckets and caps out onto the field at Comiskey Park on Memorial Day, I think in 1961 or something.
When him and Harry Carey used to do the game together, they're arguing. Harry says, "You're crazy, Jimmy." He says, "Yes, I am, Harry, and I've got the papers to prove it." Anyway, the one scene that was very profound, Anthony Perkins, as Pearsall, is in the sanitarium, and he's talking to the doctor, and the doctor was being critical of the father, more or less, and he turns and he says, "My father is the reason I'm here today." And it was the truth, So it just,
Yeah, give them credit.
But again, getting back to parents, and you would think that the first time you spoke to the parent of a child that you spend a lot of time with during the week, your own time, like I say, in the rain, in the snow, whatever, you'd think the first thing that they would say is, "Hey, thanks a lot, guys," or "Let me buy you a beer." No, the first thing they said is complaining. I got a bone to pick with you.
Call you, man.
the irony of it is,
Yeah,
the irony of it, the corker was, we were putting in our own money. There was no parish organization.
No.
We bought the uniforms.
Yeah,
We
held
ran
our
a couple of
own-
raffles
we held
later
our
and
own
stuff.
fundraisers.
Yeah,
and-
everything. It was
Yeah.
soup to nuts.
But
I
you
remember
just
the
came from
one guy
work and
comes
went
up.
to the
He
field.
says, one guy comes up to us and he says, in that third and long, in the third quarter. Well, listen, hear me out. He says, you should have thrown long. You should have gone long there. I said, well, you know what? I was contemplating going long, but then I realized I was coaching a quarterback that could not throw the ball more than 20 yards.
And on that happy note,
We'll be right back after these messages of interest and importance.
Yeah, you should have gone long.
Exhibitors Carpet Service has changed their name to Carpet Warehouse at 4300 West Montrose Avenue in Chicago. Stop in at Carpet Warehouse at 4300 West Montrose Avenue, and the phone number is area code 773-283-0100 for a great deal on all your carpets. If you need carpeting in your living room, dining room, bedroom, den, or family room, or even your outdoor patio, stop in at Carpet Warehouse, located at 4300 West Montrose Avenue, or call 773-283-0100. So remember, friends, if you need a carpet in your living room, dining room, bedroom, den, or family room, or even your outdoor patio, the place to go is Carpet Warehouse at 4300 West Montrose Avenue, or call 773-283-0100. That's Carpet Warehouse, located at 4300 West Montrose Avenue, just east of the Kennedy Expressway on the north side of the street on Montrose. And the phone number once again is 773-283-0100, or 4300 West Montrose Avenue for a great deal on.
And now back to our show.
But the parents are. Yeah. And
Jack?
The parents didn't know.
All right.
Jack?
Tension.
what are we going to talk about the Little League anymore? Or are we going to move on? I do have one topic I definitely got to cover before we leave.
Oh, okay.
Should we do that now?
Go ahead, 'cause I was going to throw something. but go
Okay.
ahead.
Listen up, you guys.
We're going to talk about Valentine's Day or no?
That's already over.
Or the massacre.
Oh,
That's
Already talked
past.
about the
Well,
Saint
that was
Valentine's.
just-
History,
That was, a
see?
good, that was a good time in history. Yeah,
Okay.
They eliminated a few guys
Chicago,
that day.
Chicago Sun-Times. Tuesday, February 10th,
They still publish?
2015. Page 10. Top article. Teen accused of mugging Ram's son taken into custody.
Oh, yeah.
Prosecutor alleged the attacker, once found guilty of possessing stolen vehicle, has 11 arrests on record. I'm not going to read the whole thing.
Yeah.
Not that I couldn't.
Good.
Skip down.
Wasn't that long.
It's Cook County Judge Lori Wolfson. The name sound familiar? Wolfson? Was there a Dean Wolfson?
Yeah.
Was a big time lawyer. Remember?
Yep.
Made the ruling of prosecutor that this kid has been arrested so many times, found guilty of possession of a stolen motor vehicle in October, was sentenced to a year of probation in January. The judge also noted he had contact with Chicago Police Department 32 times. Now here we go. Listen to this part. It probably won't occur to a lot of people here. Now 18. The teen was 17 at the time of attack on Zach Emanuel. Prosecutors have charged him as a juvenile.
You can't do that. 17 is an adult. in criminal.
17 years old.
17 is an adult.
Yeah, once you're 17, you play with the big boys in
Exactly.
Illinois. So there's something down here. This, looks like we're trying to just get it over with, and it sounds like maybe this guy is going to, have a city job down the line somewhere. He
Probably,
took the
yeah.
fall.
Yeah.
Not only that, what is going on here would appear to be a conspiracy between the mayor's office, the police department, state's attorney, and this judge, just to get
Never
this thing out of the way.
Never in the
And nobody
city.
wants to listen to this. I sent an email to the Sun-Times editorial, never heard back. Surprise, surprise, huh? What would you say, Tom or Ray? Or
Well, you got to look at the other one. There was an article a couple days ago about, 34,000 people in the state of Illinois have suspended driver's licenses. They're still driving.
Yeah.
Well, that's
I'm
not hard
shocked.
to believe that.
I am shocked.
Throw a rock and hit someone with
Well, that's-
this.
When the state police took over the Illinois the city expressways in the city of Chicago, I never forget
the first time I ran into one of the state troopers in the station right off the Ryan at 51st and Wentworth, and I said, "So how do you like our expressway system?" He goes, "Nobody's got a driver's license. I can't stop anybody with a valid driver's license. I made 30 stops. Nobody's got a license." I said, "Well, welcome to the big city."
Right? What do you
Well, they want to take care of that
Insurance,
problem.
too.
They just lock the car up, tow
Yeah.
it. There's a bunch of tow drivers out there. Be glad to
If
take
somebody's
it for you.
license is suspended, just take away the car.
Yeah.
L, the only thing that'll
that's
stop
appealed.
those guys from those folks from driving, whoever they may be, is when Tom or Ray or myself have them in arrest in at the station for that time.
That's about the
That
only
doesn't
time
stop.
they're not driving.
I used to.
That's the only time they're not driving.
I
That's when you're driving.
handle a lot of accidents. I agree with you. Al, I agree with you 100%. But that will not work, and it hasn't worked. Let me just give you the facts of life here. I used to investigate accidents. I'd get somebody drunk, a driver drunk in an accident. So they'd say, "Officer, that man's drunk." And I said, "You know what? I'm going to charge him with drunk driving. I'm going to make sure, I'm going to make every court case, I'm going to make sure that he's found guilty, and he's going to lose his driver's license." And they say, that's great. Thank you, officer." And I said, "Because you know what that means? Is the next time he runs into you, he'll still be drunk, only he won't have a driver's license.
Right.
Because if you think that that's going to stop this guy from driving a car,
Yeah, ain't
you're
happening.
crazy."
That's right.
Ain't happening.
They got these blow meters on the cars and all this other
Yeah.
stuff, and you know that
That doesn't
that's
mean you
easy
just
to
have
get
someone
around.
else blow into the thing.
Yeah.
I always thought, like, you just have your buddy who hasn't had anything to drink blow it and start your car.
But if you take the car away, I realize what he says. The fact is, it's inconvenient until he gets another car.
Right.
Right,
Or
exactly.
he'll go right
Or otherwise, he's got to go
Oh,
down
use his mother's
and
car.
pay to get the car out
Now,
of the
I want to
Very
go
good.
back to the conspiracy. Like, what type of conspiracy do you think is going on? Do you think
Yeah.
this with the Rahm Emanuel's
Well, what
kid?
does it sound like?
No, I know. Well, the thing
Here's
is
right in
that
the paper, you know.
the thing that's strange to
paper-
me is that, okay, first of all, I don't even think legally you can charge the person as a juvenile. I suppose they can do what they want, but
Yeah,
but at 17,
I don't think
it's-
it can flip. It can flip.
No, you
from
can't.
juvenile to adult. It
No.
can't flip from adult to juvenile.
No, you can't go backwards. So I don't know. Maybe the person who wrote the article got it wrong and wrote the wrong thing.
No, it's
No,
not.
more to right and
It's
wrong.
impossible.
Yeah.
It's in the newspaper. It's got
Yeah, it must be
so.
true.
So what do you think is being covered up?
Right.
What do you think is happening? Do you think
It looks
like
like
Rahm
they're just trying to
Emanuel's
get rid of
son-
this for election time. Is what went on there was all big hush hush.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Like, how did it
I-
even make the news that he got his cell phone stolen in the first
This is
place?
December. What was the date?
Well, the kid would have had to go to his dad and said, "My cell phone got stolen," and he'd
But-
have to do a police report.
but what-
Otherwise, you'd never know what had happened.
Another
so-
thing that I found out from our mayor, they pointed out, some news media people pointed out that you have the detail car on that block, and they were right there.
Yeah.
And Rahm said, and I know you'll be surprised about this if you haven't heard it, because I was surprised too.
Mm-hmm.
He said that car is not there to protect me.
Oh.
That car is there to protect the whole area.
Oh.
See, it's just a coincidence
Oh, I
that it
see.
parks
yeah,
in front
right.
of his
Yeah,
house
yeah, yeah,
24
yeah.
hours a day, and that they drive his kids to
Probably
school.
shoveled earlier.
I'm
than
sure.
his
I'm sure.
neighbor-
I'm sure anyone on the block, when their kid was leaving for school in the
That's
morning,
true.
they
They
could
would've
wave
given a
down
ride.
Yeah.
one of Rahm's details and say, "Hey, could you drive my son to school too?" And they say, "Sure, hop in." Are you kidding me? I mean, does anybody believe this nonsense?
Apparently, yes.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
I'm
I
saying
think the other
something too
question
much.
is there's so many cell phones stolen, and they go disappear so quick up the market that how the hell did they able to trace it back? I don't know.
I think
the thing was
Can I
it was
say
a
this?
drug deal.
Yeah, that's where all those
Drug
things.
deal
say that.
gone bad.
That's where all those things go.
I
drugs.
think the child, both those, I call both of them children. One of them is involved in something no one thought he'd be involved in.
Right.
And the other source that so-called did his damage, they were truly meeting, and both had to come up with a story. And somewhere they got the truth out of one, and because the truth is too
Right.
much
Yeah,
for
yeah,
the
too much,
newspaper,
yeah. You gotta make it
they're
go
giving
away.
this kid
Right.
a
Make
break.
it go away.
If that wound,
there's-
Right.
up in open court,
Oh, they'd be
somebody
back.
might say
And
some
don't
things
tell
that
me
they
he
don't
was
want to.
calling
Right.
his
Right.
school counselor at
They wanna get
11
rid of
at
this.
night because
Is that
I
the-
don't care who you are. You never call. You'd never get a answer from your
Now,
school.
see,
but
Jeanette,
that's-
there's street smarts
Yeah,
in
but see,
action.
but I would be surprised it ever made it out of that. Like I'm saying, if there was something
This is a
wrong going
cover.
on, let's
Yeah.
say
Ram's
Ram's
son was
selling
injured. We
drugs
didn't
or
even know
something
that.
was
Oh,
going
but
on,
that
or
all
whatever.
is part of
Whatever
it.
was happening.
Yeah.
if a
Remember
son-
years
I mean,
ago-
why did it even make the
The
news
fir-
in the first
the
place?
first
Like, why did
Daly
it
had a
disappear
place
before
up
it
the
even
first
got
guys
to
on the
Michigan?
scene,
yeah, yeah.
they wanted to
Same
get
story.
a description of who
That
the
boy,
offenders
Pat
were, and
the
his
bad
son
boy?
wasn't saying
Yeah.
He
anything.
got arrested.
And was
So
there-
who made the
About it again.
report? Who even
That's
reported
right.
that there was anything going
Yeah.
on?
And
One at
it
a
almost
time,
happened
guys.
with the
Yeah.
other
One at
nephew.
a time.
Yeah. Who next? Yeah.
Yeah, did they
You
say
know,
who
when he
who
killed
even
that,
reported it? Like, why did the
kid
police
back
show up in the
then.
first
Or
place?
the
What
whole
happened?
episode, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there was supposedly reporting of a woman's scream too going on there. Unless that was the mayor.
But the point is, there's something being
Yeah, there's
covered
something
up.
going on.
Something
obviously, but-
Yeah,
definitely
I
is
think
being
that's-
covered
And
up.
what about the Obama Library? As long as since next month they're making the decision, and we're
I
talking
wanted
about
a park.
presidents,
Can you
They
take
could-
books out of there too? Or?
No,
it's not there yet.
no, it's all
Believe me, I've got
reference.
my own opinions. I just want to hear your opinions.
Well,
on the Obama
supposedly I
Library.
heard, you know, who's going to make the final decision? Michelle.
Yeah.
She has the final
I
say
think
so.
I-
That's what I heard.
And
Surprised.
she might swing it to Columbia University. That was speculated upon. too.
Yeah, that's- the-
I heard she's leaning towards Kenya, but I'm not sure.
but
We're
But
we
the-
get another museum.
Can you believe that?
The,
No, George
movie?
Lucas.
Oh,
yeah,
Lucas.
That's
yeah,
over
and,
with, huh?
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, we
Lucas
really
is
needed
different.
that
that was
museum,
a
didn't we?
terrible-looking museum that they had the artist rendition of it.
Space
Looked like-
Mountain.
Looked
It
like,
looks
a,
like all
looked like a
glory.
big boob.
It looked
sitting in
almost
between.
exactly like
Space
It did. It looked like a
Space
big.
Mountain.
It looked like a big boob
That's-
sitting between the Field
I
Museum
said
and.
the same thing.
yeah.
It's
Again,
so out of place.
again, the thing on this is
Now
park
we're back to
territory.
Obama.
Can't wait.
Yes.
Could you?
We don't have enough parks in Chicago as it is. Now they want to take some more park space away. They took a park on Lakeshore Drive. They made a school out of it, the Powell School or something like that. You know, he was an idiot anyway, but that's beside the point.
Well, that's not the only one.
I understand they're
realize that.
moving some outhouses coming down from Milwaukee somewhere in Wisconsin. And outhouses are going to be all put together.
But I wouldn't mind having the Obama Library, but not on
No.
not on park property.
And I got in a little bit of trouble when I posted an article about that because Jackson Park's a big.
There's plenty of
Yeah.
space.
They are.
But there are museums in
Look,
parks
they didn't
now.
like
That's
it,
not,
huh?
you know,
Well,
Museum of
no,
Science
but-
and
they're,
Industry,
they're,
no.
But well, the Museum of
was
Science
built
and
around
Industry
that, I
was
think.
there.
Don't
Was
you
there?
think?
Well, the park was there before the
No,
museum.
I think the park was there long
But-
before the
No, I don't
museum
think
because that
so.
was remnant of
Well,
the
that's- yeah, it
World's
was.
Fair.
Yeah, the park was there. It was called South Park, and it was before
Yeah,
nothing
South-
about the cartoon. But
Yeah, we
it
had
was
three
called
different park
South Park.
districts here.
Yeah, and it was Jackson, the Midway, and Washington. They were all connected. It was all considered one park.
Yep.
And the museum wasn't there, but it was built for the World's Fair, and so it was the last remaining building from the World's Fair. But the thing is that I mean, being part of the Jackson Park Advisory Council and stuff, I know what sort of red tape, because it was always deemed a historic park. It's a registered historic place federally. Jackson Park and Washington Park, and there was one teacher, a school teacher, Barry Rappaport, who wanted to put just a stone with a little plaque on it that recognized the Haitian building during the Columbian Exposition, because it was the only place that people of color and people who not of color could sit down and eat together. And it's where Frederick Douglass gave all of his speeches from, and Ida B. Wells was handing out pamphlets on the lynchings in the South. And so they went through a ton of red tape, years of red tape, just to put a little plaque and a stone in Jackson Park because it was considered a historic place. And now you've got, going to take 20 acres away from it, if it's chosen, away from Jackson Park to put the Obama Library, or Washington Park, same thing, another 20 acres, which has nothing to do with the history of Jackson Park, has nothing to do with, and again, I wouldn't mind a presidential library in Chicago, but why does it have to be taking away parkland to do
If it was going to be a George Bush library, they would be marching in the streets if you took a branch off a tree. in the park.
Exactly.
One branch of the library.
So
Oh, but by the way, listeners, anyone doesn't realize, an acre is equivalent to like 2 football fields. So you have like 40 football fields worth of land.
Well, most city blocks are equivalent to about 7 acres.
As much as 7.
Yeah, no, I saw the maps of where it would go. It would go basically where the area that was taken over, where the horticultural building and the transportation building was at the World's Fair.
well, they
So it's a
did they
large
have two
area.
sites.
They have
If-
2 sites
if the-
chosen. There was
my-
also University of Illinois Chicago, which you don't hear about. and then another site, but then the two park sites, Washington and
With the
Jackson.
park sites, if it was the one site on the west side, it'd be difficult to get attendance. In the east side, which is closer to U of C, they probably would get some attendance there.
There's another one around 31st in Michigan at the Ophthalmology College. It's a site for sore eyes.
Site for
There's
sore
the
eyes.
bunch.
John Ryan, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, you can't see too well anymore.
Well, unfortunately, at the park
Is-
district meeting, the only way they could do that is if the park district transferred the land to the
They've
city.
approved it.
They approved
Yeah,
it
the board-
unanimously.
Surprise, surprise.
Unanimously, even
Now,
though they said it was
imagine
the
that.
largest outpouring against anything they've ever done,
Yeah.
and it was like 8 hours of comments that they read that specifically came from the internet. The people that couldn't get registered because there was only so much space at the meeting. There was 8 hours of comments,
They
and they still
put on the
unanimously
show.
went against it.
Let's give them
Yeah.
a fair trial and then hang them.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
you mentioned historical being called a historical
No, it is a
landmark
registered
or
historical.
whatever.
Yeah.
Are they? Do they pay property tax when it's under that guidance?
I don't think there's any tax
No.
paid on the park. It's
Well,
public
I'm
land.
just saying, is there such a? I'm using that as my.
If it's
Boy.
a private museum, they take property tax.
Yes,
If it's a public museum, they don't.
right.
My
But the question
version
is, if
was
they charge admission, is it public or private?
there.
And the thing is they
See?
will charge admission.
Yeah.
See that the contradiction
Right.
of two things. That's
Right.
that's
Of course,
what I'm saying. Just like
contradiction.
churches with the property
right.
tax and
Well, right.
water.
Yeah, they get a property tax
And
exemption.
hospitals.
Well, here's
Sure.
And
the
if
other.
it's public, there should be an exemption.
Right.
But it's not.
Uh-huh.
It's supposedly it's privately funded.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Whatever.
privately funded, but then
Yes.
the feds or
Yes, the
government
feds-
takes over.
Yeah, the feds takes over after a certain
Well,
amount of time.
don't forget now, you're in Chicago, so you just don't know where
Oh,
you stand.
We
For
can change the
example,
rules.
that Columbia Yacht Club has had that giant, whatever it is, moored forever over there where Naval Armory used to be, over around there. Paid nothing. And yet, the city of Chicago, I think it was the Washington administration or the Byrne, one of them was in, they wanted that Silver Sides that the people had bought the
Right.
USS Silver Sides, that was
That was
over,
Washington.
they wanted them to pay a mooring fee. So, one day, a tugboat came along and they pulled the Silver Sides over to Muskegon, Michigan. So, who lost? We did, right? For
Right.
whatever it might be, what ridiculous amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the other thing was Muskegon also did I haven't been there, but I heard that they did a fanfare, and they built a facility for the Silver Side. So now it's a tourist attraction.
Oh, yeah, it's a big
Of
tourist
course, of
attraction
course.
there. I mean,
It's called the
which,
lake.
which we could have done too.
Well, I
Oh,
mean,
absolutely.
You know, we could have
Yeah.
done that too.
Yeah,
know,
you mentioned the
yeah.
Viking ship. I mean, that's a great group that takes care of that. Friends of the Viking ship.
You're right.
And,
It's out in
and they're
Geneva.
looking for a home, and none of our museums want it. They'd like
See?
to put it in an indoor location. It's,
Right.
it's a very historic relic, and nobody wants it.
That was going on for years now, though. So that's just recent.
Oh no, it's been going on for years.
It was in Lincoln Park. I remember
It
seeing
was
when I
in
was a
Lincoln
kid.
Park for a while.
And Lincoln Park evicted them. And at that time, they had shields on the side, and almost all the shields were stolen.
Mhm.
And the crib that it was sitting on was improper, so it spread. So they had to bring it
Align
back
it.
together and realign it, or whatever you want to call it. So now it's sitting out there, and I haven't been out there. I keep on saying I'm going to go there, but as far
I've
as
been
it
there.
gets,
It's nice. They do nice tours there. It's in Geneva. Good temple.
One thing about the Vikings, they always had great lats, don't you think? All that rowing, you know.
Oh yeah.
oh, you know, that was one of these things that they bet they couldn't make it.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? Dublin was
They
was
sailed
a,
that
was
thing
a
from
Dublin
Norway
was
to
a Viking
Chicago
city.
and never took a thing out of the water.
Yeah.
Bill mentioned before, he mentioned the U-505. So look, we had the Silver Sides, storied United States Allied submarine, a few miles south, U-505. The first ship captured on the high seas by the United States Navy since the War of 1812. And Admiral Gallery, his brother, Father John Gallery, baptized me,
Oh.
among others. Well, I think he baptized the whole family, I think, but not at once.
Well, the other thing is they found a World War I submarine at the bottom of Lake Michigan, and
The
they
guy's
cannot
still alive.
raise it because the
Sherman
fact it's
sub?
a relic.
German side. Wait a minute.
Well,
Japanese.
it was the Treaty of Versailles. The day that World War II started, and according to the Treaty of Versailles, they had to sink the ship or the boat, and they could not raise it. So now it's still sitting at the bottom of Lake Michigan.
Oh, wait a minute. All boats are ships, and all ships are boats.
No,
Remember that?
no.
Yes.
You know the reason why submarines called a boat, not a ship?
Why?
Because boats are carried by ships.
Can be.
They are. That's one of.
Well, that's what I said. All boats are ships, and all ships are boats.
No.
Yes.
And
This sounds like a great debate.
They used to carry the submarines and transport them on a ship.
Yeah.
As the submarines grew larger and larger, they couldn't do that anymore. So it ended up.
Okay. They were no longer boats.
Essentially, still being a boat, but it's too large to be a boat type of thing.
My best definition that I heard, boat versus ship, is a boat is what you look for when your ship is sinking.
Good.
Anyway,
Nice.
before this one time when they get towed the Silversides away, we had 2 submarines here. Both of them were here in Chicago.
Well, U-505 is still there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
It's
towed
on
that
the
one.
ground
Inside
now.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's inside.
Saved it.
Is that we were there when they brought it across the Lakeshore
I was
Drive.
watching them doing that
Yeah.
too. I saw you. I was with the
I
Messinas
got
next door.
photographs of them transporting them around the east side of the museum.
Yeah.
They got trucks there. It was
They didn't know what to do with it.
Quite a job because it was pretty well rotted out, and they were able to transport it without puncturing the hull. So
One guy got killed in that. One guy was one German.
Yeah.
One Kraut. I'm half a Kraut myself, so I can say that. One German got killed in that operation.
yeah, and it actually saved the lives of the rest of them because the mortality rate on a submarine was like 80%.
Yeah, especially a U-boat.
Yeah, U-boats.
U-boats
yeah.
were, Is that a U-boat?
80%. U-boat, yeah.
No, that's not my boat.
Untersea boat.
Yeah, U-boats. Untersea boats.
Anyway, where are we at now? Where are we at? I said that wrong. Where are we?
We're trying to sink your boat.
Yeah. Well, I still
Just
say,
a little footnote on this
Thank God.
Obama Library thing. With all the slum clearance that's been going on the South Side, wouldn't there have been the equivalent of acres of land, let's say, adjoining
Yes.
Washington Park or
Yes,
Jackson
there would
Park?
They said
Just
that
across the
you're-
street
you're-
from it.
You're trying to be
that's
logical.
the
That
point.
don't
I'm
work
trying
in
to
the
be
city.
logical. The city could have, whether the city owns that land now, was it contiguous, and that kind of
One of
thing.
my comments was, Rahm Emanuel said, for those people that are considered, worried about our public open lands or green space disappearing, we fully intend to replace the 20 acres with open land. And I'm like, really? Well, how about take that 20 acres
Yeah.
that you replace it
Yeah,
with,
yeah.
put the library there, and then leave the park alone?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that make any sense?
Well,
Make it easier.
the other thing, go back a little bit more with the Star Wars library.
Yeah, we just said that.
Star Wars.
Yeah.
Star Wars and Norman Rockwell Museum.
Yeah.
See,
that
that
does
goes
a
together
blend.
really
There's
well.
a
Yeah, it
blend,
doesn't.
You've got a big bust of Darth Vader, and
Yeah.
you've got a really neat Norman Rockwell.
It
They have a
does-
Norman Rockwell Museum in Philadelphia.
Well, that's what this would
Is
be
it really?
his Norman Rockwell.
Yeah, he's got his own
Oh.
collection.
Well,
He's got,
He's
We're
got a
building a-
collection
he's
of
got a
Norman.
collection.
I
Yeah,
see.
we're building
So
a place
both-
for him to store
Yes.
that.
I see.
Pretty
So
much.
this is going to become his attic.
well, here,
I don't
Just
think
run
they're
out
doing
of
it
room at
anymore.
home.
the catch on that though, it's a parking lot, so it doesn't bother me as much in the respect as Jackson Park does.
You would if you had tickets to the bear. If you were there,
Yeah,
season tickets,
now,
how about it?
tailgaters
tailgater.
don't appreciate
God damn
it.
it.
Does he
Yeah.
also have a
Yeah.
bottle cap collection?
I'm not
or
sure. Beer
Baseball
can.
cards?
Yeah,
or-
beer can.
Beer can
Popsicle
collection.
sticks.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me as much as I don't care. I don't worry about the tailgaters. That's another
Well, you
problem.
wouldn't.
You would if you were a
But-
tailgater.
But it would be nicer to have it somewhere else besides
Besides Chicago.
Lakefront Park. But you got to look at it. It's close to the museum, the Field Museum. At one time, the Burnham plan is always brought up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the reason the Field Museum is at where it's at is the fact that it was beyond the Burnham plan boundaries.
Absolutely.
New
Yeah.
land, yeah.
So they built it there, and then they
In
built the
eras.
shed, and they built the Adler Planetarium, and then
Everybody got to have a shed.
Yep. So it's a little different in that respect. You know, but and then you got the eyesore called Soldiers Field.
Well, they destroyed
Soldier
Yeah,
Field.
yeah.
Soldier
Well,
UFO.
Soldier
or what
Field,
the
yeah.
UFO
First Mayor
there.
Daley wanted to build an airport in the middle of Lake Michigan. Maybe they could put the museum in the middle. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Has anyone
Then,
considered
Hey,
that?
put on Northerly Island.
Charles, all kinds of tolls
Yeah.
to get there.
They're already redoing that.
Do you think that there would be a problem of
How do you
underlying
get there?
thought of we
Yeah, there's
don't
no
even
parking.
want to develop
What's that?
certain areas? And,
Northerly
you know,
Island,
you've
yeah,
always
Big
seen
Airport,
that they
whatever
never
they're called.
progress.
There's parking at
Like
the
now they're
planetarium.
yelling, talking
Yeah,
they
but
don't
also
have a
big lot there.
good grocery store.
Yeah,
they
somebody
don't
else
have
wants
a
to park there,
good
though.
Is that Solidarity
Because
Drive?
I think anybody who had enough knowledge of that business would be wanting to run and get that
You go there on a Sunday, it's
type of
impossible
business
to go parking.
and bring it up. Other than bringing a Whole Foods where your bar of soap is $5 and $8 a bar.
Right.
That
doesn't
unless
work
they
in that
see
area,
it going into that direction.
Right. Well, I think they're anticipating. There's a lot of this, and I'm kind of guessing that they're going to choose Chicago. I'm only guessing that they're going to choose one of those park areas, whether it's Washington or Jackson, because there's already real estate people from Washington D.C. buying out large areas
See?
of
That's-
land.
there's
outside.
something.
So it's
Where's
already
that?
going. I didn't write the address down. It was just in an article.
In
Chicago?
that vicinity,
In Chicago.
yeah, of
Yeah.
the
Chicago?
park.
Yeah, in Chicago.
Uh-huh.
Well,
But
In
I
that
mean,
area, because they see it's coming
they're
there, and so they're
developing
developing
it
it.
with
Yeah.
out of range dollars, you know,
Right.
that even I would
It'd be
find
like
very
opening a
difficult to
Tiffany's,
do my
you know.
grocery shopping there.
That's-
My own partner,
So they
Casey,
have fresh fruit.
Casey Janota and myself, were taking a report for a guy who was rehabbing one of those brownstones on King Drive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, officer, you know, who's buying land around here speculating? This is in maybe 79 or 78, maybe. All state insurance was buying up property around the area at the time. That's how many years ago now?
Few.
A lot of
Yeah,
years.
it's a few.
45, 46.
36, 37 years ago. So,
No,
of course, you know,
yeah.
we didn't have the money to speculate that way. Or
The other thing that's
Well,
sort
they
of
do
funny,
do
if you look
that,
at the history of Chicago, when they originally extended Ogden Avenue east, a lot of the aldermen bought property,
Oh, sure.
and it's
Chicago?
No.
They
No.
profited from their public office? That's hard to believe.
does the name Cullerton sound familiar?
They have something to do with city government,
Your
don't they?
brother-in-law didn't tell you that, did he?
there's
Been a
Cullerton
Cullerton
Street, too.
city government since
Sure.
Columbus discovered America. I believe.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And you know, he discovered it
84
too
years,
Yes, he
I think
on
it
Columbus
said.
Day.
That's why we call it Columbus Day.
How convenient.
Now they
He
got-
planned it that way. He
Now
looked.
they-
He looked on the calendar. It said October 12th. This is the day that I.
Yeah,
No,
we had a
no.
couple of really bad biographies of him. How many years ago now? Recently, you know, one was with Marlon Brando was Columbus, and one I think it was who Rip Taylor was the other one. Or,
Oh, God.
but anyway,
You're
in one
probably
of them,
close to the Rip Taylor.
in one of them, the men are mutinying. They're ready to behead him. Just as they discover land. I mean, talk about embellishing the story, huh?
Well, you know, you got to look at your knives. The understanding I have is the fact that because of the fact that it threatened mutiny, they took take the knives out, busted the tips, and dulled the blades so they couldn't kill them.
No, you have dull blades. You mean?
Dull blades, yeah.
Wouldn't stop a jihadist, would it?
I guess not, but
Well,
at that time that's why your kitchen knives are away to yard. Instead of decent knives, you know, they're cut bread with.
Well, the Rip Taylor one was the most authentic, I think. Especially when he was the first man to import confetti
Yeah.
into the
But
into the New World. So I think that was more historically accurate.
Since then, he doesn't come out of Vegas, though. Isn't that true?
Yeah, right.
Stays up. You ever seen him?
Huh? Rip Taylor, yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen him on, whatever.
He's still around.
I think
He's been around.
Oh, do you
I
know he's
Yeah, I
still
think-
alive?
I think he-
Listen to this one.
Lots
Remember
of
Professor
billions
Irwin
of
Corey?
Yeah.
The world's he's like 101.
He must be, yeah.
Yeah.
World's foremost
World's
authority.
foremost authority.
With the oversized tails and
Yeah.
great jeans and sneakers. Remember that?
Yeah.
Funny as could be, though.
And you got to move your vowels.
Yeah.
That was one of my.
How did you know?
I'm sorry. I'm sure.
Hey, John. Hey, Rich.
Why?
Got it.
Are we coming off commercial or on the commercial? I'm sorry. Are we back to the show? What are you doing, John? I'm sorry.
Well, friends, winter is here. And before we get any heavy snow, ice, or rainstorms, you may want to check the roof, siding, and gutters on your home. Be sure the roof, siding, and gutters are in good shape. You don't want mold or mildew in your attic or crawl space, and you don't want drip, drip, drip on the ceilings in your rooms, or have your walls damaged by leaky gutter or bad siding. So don't have double expense. Sooner or later you're going to have to get it repaired. So call Best Brothers Roofing, Siding, and Gutter at 630-616-1359. Mike Besch will drive over in his shiny red truck with ladders on top and Best Brothers Roofing signs on the doors, and Mike will look over your roof, siding, and gutters, give you an estimate, and go from there. So once again, don't have double expense. Call Best Brothers Roofing, Siding, and Gutters for a free estimate at area code 630-616-1359. That's Best Brothers Roofing, Siding, and Gutters at 630-616-1359. Call today for a free estimate. That's 630-616-1359. Call today for a free estimate. 630-616-1359.
And all the rest, they didn't even get billing. It just showed the and the rest.
Once again, we return to our show. Jack?
All right, class. We're not in the home stretch, but we're on the far turn. Sure looks like it, doesn't it? Now, we've pretty much covered most, just about. How about the international situation now with this jihad?
How about that international situation?
What are we going to do?
Tell me about
What do we have to do now?
I'm sorry. I can't stop worrying about global warming. I just can't help myself.
At last reports, it's 3 above outside.
Oh, God, you had to tell me that.
Warming, see?
As before with George Carlin, the weather report.
Yeah, now
It's cold today. It's going to be cold tomorrow.
I know we've mentioned this before, but if you go to the 1970s, all these
Global
Omni
cooling.
and these, it was talking about the coming ice age.
right?
Remember?
That's right.
All these-
Coming ice age.
Well, they had
That was
a
caused
mini
by
ice
global warming.
age that ended around 1900. It lasted about 400 years, and
Well, didn't Al
people
Gore
were
get
worried that
big
the
on
world
that
was going to
subject?
freeze over.
For the
and
Cubs,
all
it's
this
lasted
stuff, so-
since what, 1904? I mean, they've been in an ice age now for over 100 years.
The freeze
Yeah.
over.
Well, they claim that part of the ice age was one of the reasons why the one winter in World War II was one of the coldest on record in Europe because of the mini ice age. True or not, I don't know, but this is one of the claims.
You know,
So
you're
it's,
talking about like around the time of the Battle of the Bulge and
Something like that. It was cold.
It was the,
That was a bad winter, yeah.
Yeah, it was a bad winter.
Yeah.
They claim that was the
Bastogne?
remnants of the mini ice age that ended at about 1900.
Yeah.
I don't know how they determined the exact
well,
cutoff
they
date.
talked
but-
to Al Gore probably.
Well, I'm still trying to figure out to the global warming people, when things get colder,
That's caused by global
it's
warming.
caused by global
Right,
warming.
Yeah.
I mean, you just can't get it.
You have to
just when
understand
you
the science of this.
Just
Yeah.
when you
God,
think
it
it was like
changed.
it was like the old Flash Gordon series, when Ming would tell Flash, if you must fight the masked swordsman, and if you win,
Which
you will be
no man
released.
can conquer.
Right. So Flash fights the masked swordsman and he wins, and
Yes.
Princess Zora says, "Father, he has defeated the masked swordsman. You must release him." No, he has only won the right to fight the mighty beast of Mongol. It's like there's no end to it. So I mean,
He must fight the giant octosac.
It's a global warming. It's freezing cold. So that only shows.
Yeah.
that the glo-
It's
what?
like,
Well, you got to look
Sounds
at
like
Well-
my tax man.
Yeah, right.
That's like,
you
remember,
wanna,
gang?
you want to attack a particular reason for global warming would be overpopulation.
oh yeah, right, okay. Oh yeah, wasn't there a
Everybody
study?
wants to do the same thing. They want to keep warm in the winter,
Or
Well,
underpopulation.
cold in the summer.
I
or
thought it
cool.
was due to like too many cows.
Yeah, I was going to
That
say,
too.
there was that
Yeah.
study about
Yeah.
cow flatulence.
Actually-
Remember that?
Methane, yeah.
Methane
yeah.
gas
Yeah.
from cow
The
flesh
funny thing about it was
causes more greenhouse gases than
Greenhouse
automobiles.
gas, that's
yeah.
correct too.
Yeah,
You might
yeah,
have
so
narrowed
if
it down.
we
The
stop
real
eating
cause
beef,
of global
Yeah,
warming.
So we
eat more
can
beef,
blame
yeah.
Chick-fil-A.
well,
So,
the other-
like-
the other one that was sort of funny with that was that one guy actually heated his barn with cow gas.
Isn't that painful?
That's ironic.
I don't know how he did it.
for the cow, maybe.
What about
They were trying to
But the other one is, you know, everybody's talking about global warming. He said you got to do something with the garbage.
Probably just cost too much.
Well, the city of Chicago is one
Throw
of
it
the
out.
worst
Not enough
recyclers that I know
We'll
of.
work on that.
And I said, why don't you do something with the garbage? Well, you can't do anything with it. It's just throw it in the dirt. I said, well, you know, it produces methane gas, amongst other things. You just pipe the gas off, and you refine it, and you got all kinds of gas. Oh, is that right? Well, you're in charge of the environmental department, aren't you? Oh, yeah.
well, it's just like the study. What was the study done by the commissioned by the federal government to measure the effect of cow flatulence on global warming? Now, excuse me, before we had all these cattle, weren't there like maybe millions of head of bison. Deer, bighorn sheep, pronghorn antelope, whatever out there on
They
the
don't
plains
count.
anyway?
They
I mean,
don't
they
count.
don't.
They don't count. No.
That the same that the same
No, they
process.
don't count. They don't count.
But
Yeah.
we didn't
They're
have
gone.
all the
They don't count.
politicians, though. That's the problem. We you know we have a overpopulation of politicians.
Oh, yeah, I think you're
Yeah.
right. Matter of fact, some are starting to call it like the political class. It's not just, it's not just the system. Well, of course, the system. A lot of these guys are, pretty good personally. Okay guys, but the damn system. Like, for example, in Chicago, getting back to Chicago, why do we even have a city council?
Oh,
we got-
50. Why does that
Why
be
do
a
they
50?
do? What do
Yeah.
they do?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do they do?
Do they?
Yeah, I mean, rubber stamp. I mean,
Well, that's I wrote on the internet that somebody was talking about. Oh, she's endorsed by the Democrat Party and everything else as well. If she's going to go and rubber stamp Obama or Rahm, so why do we even need an office? Just put a mailbox there and just drop it in the mailbox. It goes to City Hall and he decides what he
And
wants
plus,
to
the
do.
scary part is that one time we had 2 aldermen per ward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Well,
What a
that was
scary thought that is.
Really. Hinky dink, yeah.
What did,
Hinky
Hinky
dink.
Dink,
Yeah.
Bathhouse
Yeah.
John Coughlin.
That's right.
That's right.
Well, the
Patty
funny
Bowler?
story with that, though, is they decided to split that up, so the other alderman became the committeeman.
I'd
Now-
rather be the committeeman any day.
The useless track and corruption. And I said, well, they come out there and say, well, we need the committeeman because the alderman can't handle all the work. So half the aldermen in Chicago are committeemen.
Yeah, but the
Duh.
committeeman, that's a party. It's a party
I realize
seat,
that.
isn't it? Okay.
But they
What
don't.
would you- what would
they
you rather be, the
control
committeeman or
money.
the alderman?
They control the money.
Yeah, I know. I
And
can
they
dig
also
it.
make decisions if some idiot dies.
Yeah.
They vote on who's going to
Succeed
replace
him.
them.
Yeah. I call some of these guys I call them light bulb candidates. You don't really know them personally. I mean, they have no personality of their own. There's no website. But then they need them. Well, they unscrew one and put another one in over here.
Right.
We had one in the 15th Ward a long time ago. He'd been a loyal, I don't know what he worked for, Streets and Sand for a long time. All of a sudden, he's going to be an alderman.
Well, Ariel Roboris.
Who?
He's in the 33rd, 35th ward, something
Who's
like
that?
that. Ariel
I think he's
Roboris.
30th, Al. 30th. I think.
Anyways, I knew him when he came up. They had a scandal with the security over at the water department because they hired this. He wasn't a truck driver. He was a taxi driver who drove between the 2 plants, and all of a sudden he got promoted to security. He had, other than locking the door, maybe he knew nothing at all about security. So they got a friend of Gutierrez and Ariel Roboris, he got to be charged of security. Well, that didn't last too long, but he became alderman instead. And then they hired some flunky from the police department who thought she knew everything about security. But the fact is, just because you're a cop don't mean you know about security.
Or police work.
Or yeah. That's true.
So the first thing she did was she wanted a security check on all the employees.
Oh.
Well, some of these guys have been there 30 years. Now, if they wanted to do something, they would have done it. You know, first thing you do, when I was in the Air Force, they said, if you know the person, that's your first line of security. You know the person. After that, you know, it goes downhill real quick.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, there's a certain line, and she wouldn't even talk to the people. If you go and say you got problems, so you go and they talk to the people and say, well, if you find anything, you know, suspicious, let me know. If this goes on, you know, this goes through security. Well, one time I got yelled at for opening a door for somebody. I said, why'd you open the door? He said, they knocked on the door. He said, you ain't supposed to let him in. I said, nobody told me you can't leave him in. And he just walked away. And the other stupidity of it, we used to have transformers for the motors in the pumping station. You guys out there,
No lips, no tongues.
a lot of heat, especially in the summer. A lot of heat in the summer. So they got the doors open so the heat dissipates. So this idiot's over there closing the door. One of the operators said, what are you doing? Just close the door. So you close the door, I mean, you're going to be sitting over there on the street with a sore jaw. And that was the end of that one. You know, you shut the whole place down. You shut that, you know, you burn the transformers out. So, you know, these are idiots that walk in, you know.
You know, getting back to global warming, correct me if I'm wrong, but hasn't the Earth gone completely extinct at least 5 times, I believe?
Something
and
like that,
without
yeah.
any human
mass extinction, like the extinction of the dinosaurs.
Yeah, right, mass extinction. So,
Plus
and
the fact
there were
that
no humans around at all.
when the dinosaurs ruled the Earth, my recollection is that,
Oh, you
that the
remember?
climate was very hot. Yeah, as I recall from doing studies at the time. Every time I looked out the window, the thermometer was quite hot in those days. I don't believe we were burning a great deal of coal at that time.
Dinosaur flatulence.
That's what happened with the mammoths is with the La Brea tar pits. It was so hot then, just like that.
Yeah.
And that was Jack Ryan.
So I
That
mean,
was
my
not me.
point is,
there's still
no matter what we do, if it's going to go extinct, it's going to go extinct. So
Yeah.
I mean, isn't it kind of like, you know, a lot of these theories. I remember when my sister was in college. This is in the 1960s. She did a paper on overpopulation, and there was so much evidence. I mean, it was really convincing evidence that because of the population explosion, the Earth would not be able to sustain itself at the turn of the century.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
we all know how that turned out.
Yeah.
So I mean, you know, you can do a lot of different study. I mean, again, you know, when you have someone that is putting forth a theory that no matter what you say to them, they say, "Oh, that only proves my theory even more."
Right.
That's excellent.
Well,
Yeah. Where do you go from there?
The limiting factor of population will be water. And there's areas that do not have access to water, and that's mostly in Africa. They already had riots because of water shortages and stuff like that.
Right. Well, there's
You
only
gotta-
been so much water in the world since the beginning of the world, and we haven't added any water to it.
Well, the other thing
Been
is
the
it's
same
not
recycled water over and over again.
it's not drinkable.
Right. The
You
salt
know
water.
that.
But someone with a lot of clout has just invented a machine that will turn
Lead into gold.
the droppings of the human body into drinkable water.
Here we go.
You gotta use that in spaceships. Yeah.
And,
That's what the astronauts do, right?
Well, they recycled it. Yeah,
Yeah.
they recycled it.
yeah.
We used to hear talk about taking the salt out of the world's oceans, but that
No,
probably isn't
it-
the complete story.
Gold,
Whether it's
They
expensive.
do
They have
that.
desalination.
Yeah, they
plants.
desalinate
They
water.
have
Guantanamo Bay,
ships
they
that
desalinate.
desalinate.
On
Well,
ships.
they do that. They do that in the West Coast too.
Castro cut off the water early on so they put in a desalination plant desalinization
boats,
plant
only
in
in ships.
Guantanamo.
One thing
They did that in the West Coast a lot too.
about anything apocalyptic in our
Very
world, one
expensive.
thing we have to be happy about, the Strategic Defense Initiative, also known as Star Wars. We have some of that in place, don't we already? Don't we or don't we?
I don't think they
I don't know.
followed
Anyway,
through on it.
that may well save us from any sort of cataclysmic event, collision of oversized
Asteroids?
meteor or asteroid.
Yeah, but they sneak up on you.
It's going
Well,
to be
we can usually see them
zombies.
coming
It's
for
gonna
a
be
long
zombies
ways.
anyway.
What do
Zombies.
they consider a close miss?
Clint Eastwood will take
80,000
care of
billion
Clint
miles or
Eastwood,
something?
Several thousand.
If he'd stop
Yeah,
talking
several
to the
thousand
chair.
miles. They
James
got a
Garner.
couple.
There was also,
Haley's Comet was one that was relatively close at one time.
yeah.
That comes
Then-
around every 50 years.
No, Haley's Comet is not. It comes around every 76 years, I believe, but it's not.
Okay.
It's not close. No one's ever talked about a collision. There are comets though that,
Yeah, I think
in astronomical terms, come close.
I thought Haley was one of them that came close, but that
No, it was Rock Around the Clock.
Yeah.
wasn't
yeah, that was
Buddy Holly.
it? One guy?
Bill Haley of the Comets.
Yeah.
But there was one. But for the most part, comets are called big ice balls.
Yeah. Right.
So they have a tendency to, when they come into the solar system, they sort of gasify a little bit. So they're not.
That's
Well, then that would
known to be
solve the
dangerous as
problem
such.
you're worried about.
So the biggest danger is asteroids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That really shakes me.
asteroids and meteors.
My God.
And all of this in February.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there was a discovery too. I just saw this somewhere, read this. A particular amino acid was found in one comet.
Yeah.
I think maybe that's how that got here. So
Well, they talked about that years ago, that life came from outer space because they said they found some amino acids, stuff like that. But lightning will form different building blocks. So it's just a trick of lightning that could create the problem because any number of things,
now the amino acids for kids, they're the building blocks of protein. There are 22 of them. And they must be in proper balance and high protein, high class protein. For example, egg, not gelatin. Gelatin will not do it, but egg will. If they're not in proper balance, the rest will get wasted.
Am
Yeah,
I
the rest
glad
of-
I know that?
Yeah.
I'm I can sleep very well.
Just a-
Just don't
do it
think
right
about
here.
global warming.
Oh,
You'll be
You
up.
gotta-
You'll be up all night long.
you can have fried eggs.
That's right.
I don't
Well, I
find.
wouldn't mind getting my head chopped off. It's the global warming. It's that global warming thing that scares the hell out of me.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I saw one
And the
execution
Crusades,
on
too.
the internet.
They may restart the Crusades.
It was other Muslims they had lined up, and apparently it was not their. It was, I don't know. They're Sunnis and they
Whatever,
Shiites or whatever, and they're sitting there shooting them. They're dancing all over the place, and people are sick.
What about the people who aren't doing anything about it? That's even sicker.
Yeah, that is pretty sick.
Why can't we
United
just
Nations.
Once it happens in
can't
their
we all get
backyard, they
along?
do something about it. And
Right.
that's
Well, it's
where
too
it's
late
going
by
on.
then.
That's
Well,
right. Get along.
What I don't understand is why does it seem like they want to bring these? I mean, obviously he didn't shut down Guantanamo like he said he was going to do, and I think it should be there. And I think we need to be grilling these people for information and everything else. And if it involves torture, it involves torture. Who cares? But they want to bring them here to the United States
Try them
to
in court.
try them in courts
Yeah.
of law as though they have the same rights as an American citizen. And it's just ridiculous.
Well, the other thing on it, they think you're weak if you don't torture.
I mean,
Here's a little anecdote just to ties in with what we're talking about now. We just celebrated Abraham Lincoln's birthday. This year marks the 150th anniversary of his death. 150 years ago, he celebrated his 56th and final birthday on February the 12th. He was assassinated at Ford's Theater on the evening of April the 14th. It was 11 or 12 days later that John Wilkes Booth was finally apprehended and shot in a burning barn against orders. the Army wanted to take him alive, and the story is that the soldier fired and killed him. But the interesting thing is there were 7 other people that were tried as part of the conspiracy, and 4 of them were condemned to death. Mary Surratt, who owned the boarding house at which the plot was hatched. David Harold, who helped Booth escape from Ford's Theater on the night of the assassination. George Atzerodt, obviously a Germanic by his name, who was slated to kill Vice President Andrew Johnson, but the history books always say he lost his nerve. And Lewis Powell, sometimes called Lewis Payne, who did make an attempt to kill Secretary of State Seward, grievously wounded him, almost killed Seward, who was recovering from an illness. Those 4 were tried, condemned, and they were executed on July the 7th, 1865, less than 3 months after the assassination. They had been tried, convicted, and executed. And when you think about the fact that this fellow Tsarnaev in Boston, where the bombing took place, I believe, in 2012, and now 3 years later, they're finally getting around to holding the trial. They're beginning the trial 3 years later. The assassins of Lincoln had been hung in less than 3 months after the assassination. They were hung. They were hung. They were hung.
How do you know?
They were hung. I was there. I was there right after I took the temperature during the
we'll go there.
dinosaurs. They were hung.
Well, the other it's almost the same thing as with the Haymarket victims.
Haymarket, yeah.
Because they had nothing to do with. First of all, the cops weren't supposed to be there. They were told not to interfere. They went down there. Somebody threw a bomb. I don't know if they ever really discovered who threw the bomb.
So it was the cops' fault for being there when the bomb was thrown. If they hadn't been there, is that what you're saying?
That's not the cops.
Well, they were supposed to be there. They were told not to interfere with the demonstration. It was supposed to be a peaceful demonstration.
Well, supposed to be.
So they shouldn't.
That's why they brought all the guns and the bombs.
They shouldn't have been there. You would never had that problem.
That's what I'm going to bring. That's what I'm going to bring.
Well, anyway,
if the American ships hadn't been in the harbor at Pearl Harbor, nothing would have happened. The bombs would have fallen into the water.
That's right.
But
It's different,
John,
but the fact is the cops weren't supposed to be there.
you make a point about being sentenced to death. Supposedly, some actuary did a study that if you're sentenced to death in the United States, it prolongs your life.
Your life expectancy.
Another 10 years or something. Yeah.
14
You're
years.
going to be well taken care of in prison.
14 years
best
on
of
death
medical
row.
care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actuary.
Three squares.
Down the street, get shot or killed.
It's similarly to what you were just saying before. In 1933, Giuseppe Zangara shot Cermak, supposedly trying to shoot Roosevelt.
Ooh, there's
okay, and within a few months he was convicted and also executed. He tried to kill Victor Emmanuel in Italy.
Right.
How did he slip through there, huh? That was the king, by the way, everyone.
Well, in
Tom,
Chicago.
you talked about that, and I read the other day that the whoever it is, the governor's office, the Bureau of Prisons, is going to let this murderer switch sexes. Now they're going to pay for all of this.
Oh, Richard Speck. Richard Speck was a good one.
We paid for breast implants.
The hormones to make him grow boobs.
Yeah, this is right now, and whether
Are we
he
crazy
gets
or
the
what? I'm
operations
sorry,
or
is this
not,
country
but
crazy?
Can you imagine the money that it is going to make?
Money well spent.
Oh yeah.
It's mind-boggling. If you would have said something, if you would have even suggested something like that as little as 25 years ago.
Absolutely.
Well, you mentioned about how quickly people were executed.
That's impossible.
Around the Civil War in Chicago, we were executing our own people. Chicago was hanging people at the Chicago courthouse.
Copperheads?
They didn't have to go down the state.
Yeah.
And the law was written that once the sentence was handed down, you had 2 weeks to execute the person. So
When
it
I
wasn't
first-
as though you had
Should be
you
hung
had a
by
time
the neck
limit.
until dead.
Yeah.
Well, they extended the life by 2 weeks
Right.
because it should have been
Right, exactly.
immediate.
Exactly.
When I first worked in went to Loop Traffic Unit, we worked out of 54 West Hubbard, which is a famous place in its own way. So many things happened there, but we still had, they weren't set up in the back. Downstairs were the gallows to be put back up because terrible Tommy O'Connor
Tommy
escaped
O'Connor,
in
yes.
1924.
They still had to carry out that sentence.
And he's still out there somewhere.
They were still
Yeah, we're still looking
well
for
into
him.
the 60s. They still had that
This is
gallows.
1969.
Yeah.
Well, Utah just voted to bring back the firing squad. I don't know if it's
Some problems
signed.
with the
Well, they had that for a long time, and they gave the guy to be executed a choice of
Gary Gilmore.
Hanging or
Gilmore.
shooting?
Yeah,
Gilmore,
Gary Gilmore.
And a lot of them chose shooting.
Hanging or shooting?
And they always said they had no problem getting volunteers for the fire.
But it's not a movie type firing squad. They don't have 6 guys lined up saying "ready, aim." It's not. It's much more
Fire at will?
much more clinical. Yeah.
Well, that was
They
the
just
three.
did.
What if the
something
guy's name
about-
isn't Will?
They just did something about it was in Idaho, Utah, wherever it was, where they had this botched
Yeah.
execution
Talking about
by
bringing
lethal
back the sheriff.
injection. And I worked for vets, when I was a kid, all the way up to time I went in the fire department and after, and we never had a problem putting a dog or a cow or a horse or a cat down. And they went down very, very easy and very simply and just, without being botched. And why they don't use that we used at that time on these guys, I
Well, there's
can't see
there's
it.
2 reasons for it. One is it's got to be
Give
clinical.
me about 80
Yeah.
reasons. Yeah.
Okay. One is 2 reasons. It's got to be clinical, and 2, they have a hard time getting suppliers for the.
They don't have a hard time getting a veterinary business supplying that.
Yeah, I
kind
know.
of
I
stuff.
just
That's
thought-
all bullshit. To tell you the truth.
Well, my favorite comment.
That's what I was told anyway.
My favorite comment by a public official, Texas really executes a lot of people. So there was one guy that worked for the Department of Corrections, and I think he was involved in, 25, 30 executions. And they asked him, they said, do you ever feel any remorse, being involved in executing this many people? And he didn't hesitate. He goes, hell no, they should have killed him when they locked him up. He says, they just prolonged all this stuff. He says, I don't feel a thing about it. I'm glad they're gone.
They kind of bring that out in the movie version of In Cold Blood, all these extensions and, prolonging, and there's and finally, in the end, they have to do it anyway, or normally.
If you want to see something wild, though, this movie that came out a couple weeks ago, American Sniper.
I haven't seen that yet. Has anyone seen it?
that-
Did you see it, Tom?
I've
I
seen
saw it.
They
I
got-
did. My person I go to, counselor, suggested. I didn't think I was going to go to it, but he suggested that yes, I go there, and I thought it was a great movie. The guy does one hell of a job, and I'm going to see it again. I'm going to see it
There-
again.
there's a
Everybody
program-
that I know
Good
that saw
movie.
it liked it. So
Yeah, there's a
Michael
program
Moore
on
didn't
TV.
like it.
Everybody with the left likes it, huh?
There's a program on TV.
He said
The guy-
snipers are vicious.
Oh, please.
They
They're
actually got
cowards.
him on there, and they show him shooting a mile and a quarter, I think it is, and hitting somebody. He said, a mile and a quarter away, that's a hell of a long shot. I don't care how you look at it.
Yeah, I didn't see that happen when I was in, and
No, this is on
a
TV.
mile and a quarter. They it's eye to eye.
Yeah, this is he was going through a wall, too. He one of these cinder block walls. It goes through the wall and hits the
That
guy.
was on TV. Why? Must
Yeah,
have
it's
been
on cable.
true. Yeah.
It's on cable.
That's got to be right.
And there's a military channel in the upper 400s. And
What does that mean? Is that code word? Upper 400s.
well, it's the channels, and
I
they
got
have
you.
it on every so often. And mile and a quarter, you sit there, you gotta be out of your mind. That's a hell of a long way to go. And I think it took 2 shots. First one to set
Aw,
it in,
geez,
the second
2
one to
shots.
get-
Yeah, that's a guy with a 50 caliber, and I
50
never
caliber,
seen.
yeah.
That's
I
elephant
never
gun,
saw
huh?
one
50
when
caliber
yeah,
sniper rifle. Those things are crazy.
yeah,
They're nuts.
that's crazy.
You know, you
That's-
figure
that's-
the
they didn't
power-
use it in Nam and when I was
Well, you
when I
couldn't
was
see that
in.
far in Vietnam. There wasn't enough. I mean, in the desert, you can see a long
You
way.
look
In
the other
Vietnam,
side
you
of
go like
the
this.
the island.
So,
They had them in the Civil War.
I remember a guy.
Civil War rifles had over 50
over
caliber.
50 caliber, yeah.
I remember a guy I talked to. He was in the Second World War in Asia. He said he loved the carbine. He says, I asked him why. He said, well, the damn M1 rifle was so big and so clumsy, and especially in jungle warfare, it was just a pain in the butt where the carbine was lighter and faster.
Only he didn't say but. Last final word. We're at the end, gang. We've finally come. We're crossing the finish line. And on behalf of Tom McKenna, Al Opitz, Jeanette Frontier, Rich Lang, John Kushelko, a.k.a. MacArthur. Ray Johnson, our rookie. We're going to initiate him later. A lot of hazing going to go on here today.
You get to take the blood oath and everything.
Bill Kugelman and his lady friend Kate.
Thank you, sir. May I have
And
a-
myself, Jack Ryan, and John DeVita, or is it DeVita? How you say? Our own.
pay if you don't say much.
He's our. What is he? What are you, John?
Engineer.
Engineer. You're our chief cook and bottle washer, and you're our inspiration. Remember that history is much more than a book you keep on the shelf.
We wish to thank Kevin of Jack FM, WRHS 89.7 FM, for broadcasting our shows over the Ridgewood Radio Network. Recordings of previous Meet the Chicago Historians programs are available for your listening via the internet at www.windycityhometown.com. We want to thank our executive producer of the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, John Sakanda. On behalf of everyone associated with our Historians program, we thank you for listening. This is your announcer, Rich Lang. So long, until next time.
You have been listening to Meet the Chicago Historians from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network on Monday, February the 16th, the year 2015. This broadcast was produced by Jack Ryan, directed by John DeVita. Our audio engineer is James Rohde, and the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network is Mr. John Sakanda. Until next time, take care, be safe, and thanks for listening.